Hello and welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. I'm your host, Corey Sievers. And in this show, we're going to be jumping on into talking about preventing breast cancer and improving hormonal balance, eliminating hormonal imbalance. And so this is a particularly important topic for all women to really understand. Breast cancer is the top cancer amongst women, and so it's a really important topic. In the Wealthy and Wise section, we'll be talking about how you can achieve less overwhelm and enjoy more life. So stick around, really powerful topic. So look, if you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle. And so when you tap in with our community, you'll have access to all of our action plans and support to really help you achieve your wellness goals. So look, this is such an important topic on preventing breast cancer. It's currently, at time of recording, Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in this region of the world, Australia. And so, we want to reframe things a bit for you, and let's together make this Breast Health Awareness Month and really spread some of the information that can be done to improve all-round hormonal balance, to really get balanced in your hormones and then prevent issues such as breast cancer. So it's really interesting when we look at it. We've done masterclasses in the area of health and wellness, and in particular hormonal balance, for example. And one of the things that we talk about in that is that 75% or more of women experience PMS. Now, PMS is a sign of imbalance. So it's all hormonal imbalance is really a sign of poor health. So we're not casting any aspersions here, but if these warning signs of PMS are showing up, if the dashboard lights, as we like to say, really are flashing on your vehicle, your personal vehicle, saying, hey, things aren't really going right here, we don't want to just smash the light and then wait until we get breast cancer. We want to take notice of those signs so that we can prevent these degenerative diseases that are so prevalent in our Western world. And so we're going to do a bit of a dive into some of the underlying drivers for hormonal imbalance and that can lead to breast cancer. Okay, so we're not going to talk about the disease. We're not interested in treating the disease here in the Savvy team. We're interested in preventing the underlying issues that can lead to the degeneration that you experience as a disease. It's an entirely different paradigm. So look, please share this. This is such an important topic. So share it amongst your community members. And so look, wherever you happen to be catching this, we're obviously broadcasting live on Facebook right now. If you're jumping on live, give me a wave. But if you're catching this in the podcast version or on YouTube or somewhere else, then please do reach out to us and let's continue this conversation. So, Breast Cancer Awareness Month right now. We here in the Savvy team want to turn that into Breast Health and Hormonal Balance Awareness Month because there's so much you can do. So much that you can do to prevent breast cancer. And yet, we sort of assert that the challenge is that you're not being told about these sorts of things. And all of the prevention strategies are actually focused on early intervention, not true prevention. Okay, so jump on board this, communicate with us, share with us in the comments what your thoughts are, what your experience has been. We'd love to hear your questions, comments, inspirations, insights, all of that as we go along. And so look, this may not be the first time that you have been on a session like this. So we understand here in the Savvy team that what happens is that you may have watched videos, you may have read articles, you may have heard news stories, you may have spoken with co-workers and colleagues and friends and all that sort of thing. And often there can be a lot of fear around the topic of breast cancer. And so we understand, like I certainly understand, that you may want to bury your head instead of educate yourself. So if you're actually watching this or listening to this, then I really want to congratulate you and commend you for doing that, for investing the time to do that, and just ask you to spread the word here, because the sort of information that you're going to hear isn't found on the first 10 pages of Google. Many people today, many women, many men, many people feel like if they just Google something that they'll find the answers. And yet you'll find that there is a predominance of the medical information that's there. And much of what I'm going to share with you in this session, you will not find easily just doing your Googling. Okay, so, and then how do you put it all together? So look, if you've listened to things, you've spoken to people and all sorts of things, and you're still struggling to know, well, what am I actually going to do? Then that's what we're here to help you do. Okay, so if you have been struggling to put it all together, put it into practice and know what to do, then that's where we can help. Okay, so we help you with action plans and the support and guidance to really get the job done. So what knowing and doing are poles apart, as they say. So we help you get it done and move towards that higher level of health and lifestyle. So look, again, let us know how you're going in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So again, welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. If you have just joined us, we are talking about women's health, in particular, preventing breast cancer and achieving hormonal balance. And in the Wealthy and Wise section, we'll be talking about less overwhelm and more life. So if you are new to what we do here in the Savvy team, then we're all about helping you enjoy improved health and lifestyle. And so when you're connecting with our community, you'll have access to our step-by-step action plans, innovative solutions, and all the guidance and support that you need to reach a higher level of wellness. And why would you want to be healthy and well? Well, to really live life to the full. We have a whole range of wellness plans right across the board, you know, whether it's our 10 years younger challenge across down to our detox program. There's something there to help you, you know, achieve your health and lifestyle goals. And we have in amongst that, not even listed here, we have our PMS action plan and our mood and menopause action plan. So we definitely have turnkey strategies and programs to help you follow a proven plan to achieve improved hormonal balance, really, and even, you know, as you'll learn, prevent issues such as breast cancer, hopefully. So we're here to inspire you, motivate, and guide you to that higher level of wellness. And before we get underway, please do note that I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, and have no interest in working with inside the actual system. What you'll learn the more you research is that many people within the system actually have their hands tied and sometimes cannot share much of this information that I'm about to share with you without getting themselves into trouble with their colleagues. So that being said, the information that we're sharing reflects my personal research and experiences and is for educational purposes only, so should not be seen and is not intended as medical advice. The information is general in nature, and so therefore all individual health concerns have not been taken into account. Any comments and experiences should not be interpreted as therapeutic claims, and you should take self-responsibility for your own well-being moving forward. If you have any question as to the appropriateness of the information with regards to your own health, then please do discuss this with your healthcare provider. As I said, we do encourage you to take self-responsibility for your own well-being and learn more on this topic and complementary medicine in general. But look, if you do want to improve something about your health and wellness, then we can definitely guide you there. And as I said before, you know, this may not be the first time you've listened to stuff and, you know, spoken to people and watched videos and tried to cram on all of this stuff. And trust me, it's actually can be very complicated trying to piece it all together. What I want to share with you are the threads of similarity that go across the board so that you know some concrete things that you can do to stack the odds in your favor. It's not not every person is different. Each and every one of us have different genetics. We have different lifestyles. We have different epigenetic factors and everything. So there's no one way to guarantee any future wellness outcome for you personally. That's why we encourage you to take self-responsibility and learn and grow and tap in with the community. But what I want to do is share what you can do, the thread of information that goes right across all of the different researches that I've read. Now, much of this information, by the way, is widely documented in the literature. So while I said I'm not a doctor, I keep up to date with as much of the literature, and I'm actually reporting. Yep, look, we're talking about breast cancer here. I'm not female. We're talking about breast cancer and hormonal balance, particularly for women. Guys, don't turn off, but because all of this information is just as important for you to eliminate the cancers in the male reproductive system as well. But we are focusing on the topic of female hormonal imbalance. And yes, I'm not a woman, but I'm reporting the news of many women researchers and many doctors that have worked with countless women and have really uncovered some of these threads. So I'm not a woman and I'm not a doctor, but I'm here to share with you what I have uncovered and what I am able to piece together and really encourage you to follow the action plans that we put in place here in the Savvy team, because after my 30 years of doing this, I'm just seeing countless research comes out, and the root causes of most diseases are the same things. So if we can do a few simple things over a consistent period of time, we can not only prevent breast cancer, but all the other illnesses as well, and really live life to the full. That's what we're about here in the Savvy team. So glad that you are here joining us. All right. And so, look, before we jump on into the topic of breast cancer prevention and hormonal balance, we're going to jump on into a quick tip first of all. So let's have a look at the quick tip. And the quick tip for this particular show is to take notice of your circadian rhythm, your circadian biology. Now, this is hitting the news and the research papers a lot more nowadays, understanding the power of circadian biology. In other words, that's working with the way nature intended, with the sun coming up and the sun going down and the seasons and all of these sorts of things. So, you might go, hang on, well, what has that got to do with hormones? Why cover that? Well, this is a quick tip. Doesn't necessarily need to be about hormones, but let me tell you. One particular researcher that Dr. Ruth Patterson, I think is her name, and she works in cancer prevention and research, that she found that when, if you've been part of our programs in the past, you know that we encourage periods of fasting, skipping snacks, things like that, practicing intermittent fasting and dropping your toxic load and your carbohydrates and all that sort of thing. Well, what Dr. Patterson found in the research, and I'll share with you a bit more maybe later on, but she found that women who simply increased their overnight fast to at least 12 hours. So in other words, for example, you don't eat after 8 o'clock at night, and let's say that you don't eat after 7 o'clock at night, and you go to at least 13 hours, and maybe you eat breakfast at 7 in the morning. Okay? So, or let's say 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever. If you've gone 12 to 14, at least 12 hours, then she saw that participants in the study had a 40% reduction in the recurrence of breast cancer after they'd had it, just changing nothing else. Adjusting for every other factor, they had a 40% reduction just by following a longer fast, by allowing the autophagy, the self-cleaning mechanisms of the body, to be activated by not eating for a period of time. And she believes it's even more important if you follow that circadian rhythm of sunrise and sunset. They don't know for sure whether eating late into the night, for example, is part of the issue, or, whatever it is, because what they found is that people who skipped breakfast had a tendency to eat late into the night, so they could not articulate whether it was skipping breakfast or eating late into the night. My research would show that it's more of the eating late into the night, not giving yourself time before bedtime to begin your fast, and then the length of fast. So we encourage women to aim for about 14 hours. You may have heard of longer fasts, 16, 8, and all that sort of thing. Typically women, and especially women who are suffering from hormonal imbalance, don't do well with longer than 14-hour fasts, from what our community and my research shows. So Aiming for 14 hours, what might that look like? Well, that might look like you have dinner at 7 and then you don't eat again until after 9 the next morning. That's what it might look like. Or you have dinner earlier, you don't snack at nighttime or drink hot chocolates or eat chocolate or glasses of wine or cheese or whatever, or desserts, and you leave it at least 12 hours and even up to 14 hours. Right there, you can reduce, without changing your diet even, you can reduce your breast cancer risk. So there's a quick tip. One of the that's also linked to when you look at the circadian biology and everything, it's also linked to the bright blue lights. When we stay up too late at night, we're actually in front of TV screens and mobile devices and lighting. And I was at the shops the other day looking for the lighting, and the lighting that I tend to recommend are things such as the halogen bulbs. Well, the supermarkets have gone out of all halogen bulbs and have moved to only LEDs, which emit toxic blue light that will mess up your melatonin production and your circadian rhythm. I can't believe it. So now it's not easy to find healthy light. So, we encourage you to follow that circadian biology and really get out into the sun in the morning, see the sunrises if possible, and enjoy darkness. So ladies, you know that a bath, a nice relaxing bath by candlelight is actually quite relaxing. Well, enjoy more night times by candlelight, or at least dim lights. It's going to help your whole circadian biology. And melatonin, inefficient production of melatonin, which is the hormone, really one of the things that it does is help your body to shut down and then have you wake up in the morning properly. That's also improper regulation of melatonin has been linked to higher breast cancer risk. So just sleeping properly, just eliminating the blue light at nighttime, the toxic blue light, the junk light really, and getting some early morning sunshine, getting out in the sunshine during the day is going to dramatically decrease your breast cancer risk. So pretty amazing stuff. There's a quick tip. I know that doing it, knowing and doing, is poles apart. So we're going to jump on into now some hormone fun facts. Time for some hormone fun facts right now. And so, decided that we'd keep it in this theme of hormones for the fun facts session here. So hormones, when you think about it, hormones do get a lot of attention. We blame the hormones for all sorts of things. So hormones get they get the credit for things, but they also get the blame when you think about hormonal imbalance and all these sorts of things. So we know that they're important players in, obviously the whole endocrine system, in reproduction, in sexual attraction, in pregnancy, in aggression too. We know that you can be more, too much testosterone can be produce more aggression. We know that hormones are what makes the difference between men and women, but sometimes there are misconceptions about the complexity of hormones and just sort of how cool they can be. And ladies, I know you cop the brunt of the hormonal imbalance jokes and everything, and that's because your system is much more dynamic and changeable. A guy's is fairly static, solid and everything, unless it's interrupted by external forces, whereas yours is much more of an interplay, changing weekly as part of your cycle and everything. So, any number of things can throw things off, and that's where the imbalances in moods and all that sort of thing comes in. So, yep, we get that you cop the brunt of the hormone jokes and the mood swings and all that sort of thing, and that is just a function of your whole endocrine system. So here are a few things that you might not have known about your hormones. So for example, both men and women need estrogen and testosterone. And it's common, most people, I guess, tend to think about the, What am I thinking about here? Just a sec. A couple of glitches here. Yep. Okay. Yeah, again, if you have just joined us here for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, we're talking hormones. We're talking the fun facts of hormones right now. So do let us know your thoughts and insights as we go along, just by communicating in the comments. So when we look at, so what I was just talking about there was testosterone and estrogen, and people think of estrogen as being female, testosterone as being male hormone, but we need both of them. And when you don't make some of these hormones, you really do end up with an imbalance along the way somewhere. And technically, estrogen is just sort of like a nickname in a way. So estradiol, testosterone and estradiol, which is the proper name for estrogen, they're our steroid hormones. And what you may not have realized is that they're all derived from cholesterol. Yep. The same molecule that you're being told is the root cause of heart disease and everything is actually so important. So, whenever you're looking to reduce cholesterol by medication and everything, you're also simultaneously going to be messing up your hormones. But estradiol is made from testosterone by the enzyme aromatase. So to make estradiol, ladies, you are first making testosterone. So that's, we both have that. It's all an interplay with other enzymes and other hormones all interacting with each other. And that is why if one thing goes out over here, other things can have a domino decline in other areas. So the second fun fact here is that women aren't exactly hormonal when they have their periods. It's sort of technically the opposite. It's a misconception, about hormonal meaning too much hormones. In actual fact, during the menstrual cycle, there's a short window when the ovary makes a lot of estradiol, and that triggers the release of the egg. When the egg is waiting to be fertilized, the other hormones such as progesterone increase, and if there's no fertilization, then both estradiol and progesterone levels just suddenly drop. So it's the sudden drop, the lack of hormones, that actually triggers menstruation and the beginning of the cycle again. So theoretically, you're not hormonal. You actually suffered from a dramatic drop in hormones that brings on the period, and so the imbalance and the cascade of changes that can happen when those hormones drop can trigger some of the PMS types of symptoms. Now, that's aside, you might want to check out our hormonal health masterclass, where we go into the deeper information about some of these things that can throw the cycle off. Because if you aren't ovulating, okay, so we're talking there about if there isn't a fertilization, there's no fertilization, then we see a drop. If you're not ovulating, then you're not seeing the proper peak of the cycle, so you're actually not producing progesterone, and that can be a problem too. So again, that's another issue there, dealing with anovulatory cycles. But yep, so you're not hormonal at that time of the month. So hormones can be made more than just in the sex glands. So hormones are actually not just in the ovaries and the testes, and many people only thought of hormones as being sex hormones, but now they're recognizing that many other parts of the body actually produce hormones and are actually endocrine glands. So the brain can produce hormones, the fat cells can produce hormones, the intestines can produce hormones, there's just such an interplay and so many things that can be disrupted when you don't live a healthy lifestyle. So when we look at some of the things that with the endocrine system, for example, scientists are understanding that there's a lot of different things that have been linked to disruption to those pathways. And this is where the words endocrine disrupting chemicals have come in there, because they've recognized that because of the fact that there are these hormones being produced in so many different parts of the body, that they're recognizing that initially they thought that endocrine disrupting chemicals, the things that you can absorb from toxic personal care products just that you buy from the shops, or pesticides and chemicals that you use in cleaning in the home if you're just typically using the normal stuff you get everywhere else, all of these sorts of things. If you're using typical plastics and being exposed to phthalates and BPA and all of these sorts of things, then all of these typical endocrine disrupting chemicals, initially they thought they only disrupted the sex hormones, your reproductive health. But now that they realize that there are actually sort of the ability for different parts of the body to release hormones, that they're actually endocrine glands and hormone producing places in many parts of the body, they now know that these chemicals can trigger all sorts of things right throughout the body, all sorts of damaging effects right throughout the body. So it's never too soon and it's never too late to turn off the toxic tap. Next time you're shampooing your head, just ask yourself, do I know that this does not contain endocrine disrupting chemicals? So it's just so important. We're dealing here with hormonal imbalance, and that's one of the big issues, as you'll learn later on. It's one of the areas where we can really help you with as well. So number 4, the great pheromone mystery. So people throw out the term pheromones quite a lot. It's to do with attracting partners and things like that, that we have these sexual pheromones. And it's very interesting because there's a flow-on effect that they've done the research in animals, but in humans, they've not really been able to find the actual gland that can detect these pheromones. Whereas they know in mammals, for example, that there's a particular organ that detects these pheromones, but has not been identified in humans. But they've seen that there does seem to be something that goes on in humans. And so they sort of, postulate that it's to do with the sense of smell and the olfactory gland and all that sort of thing, that there's something in there. But they don't know. It's a mystery still in humans as to, because they know that there's a gland in mammals, but how come there's not one in humans? What is it? And so this is the thing right across the board in science and medicine, that they are continually making discoveries. And if your doctor, your nutritionist, your therapist, if you personally don't stay up to date, then you're actually if you're getting just textbook information, then it could be out of date. For example, just recently, I was really looking at some of the understanding that, totally off the topic of hormones, I know, but anyway, related, as you'll see later on. For example, the understanding of how you've been told that fruit is super healthy for you, right? And fruit sugar is natural sugar. So fructose is natural fruit sugar. And so we've been led to believe that that's super healthy for it. But it's only in 2010 that they really understood the biochemical pathways of how fructose is dealt with differently in the body, and how it's basically turned directly to fat. So all you big fruit-eating people that love fruit and you eat lots of fruit because it's so healthy and full of nutrition, they only learned in 2010 how that pathway differs from typical glucose metabolism. So obviously all whole foods are a mix of different ingredients, so it's not pure fructose, but this is why anything that contains fructose syrup or high fructose corn syrup or any of these sorts of things can be even more problematic. It's why fruit juices mess you up, and they activate the same sort of pathways as alcohol. So, you wouldn't give your kids, this is another fun fact topic, but you wouldn't give your kids alcohol. Oh, no, Johnny, you can't have that beer, but here, have a fruit juice instead. Same pathways are activated in the body. Slightly different effects, of course, let's go there another time, another fun fact session. All right, so number 5 in the fun facts on hormones, we're talking here about oxytocin, and it is more than the love hormone. So calling oxytocin the love hormone is simplifying its function, but that's what it's been called a lot in literature and in the common common media, etc. But it is essential for contractions that happen in childbirth. It's responsible for the milk flow in breastfeeding, stimulating the milk flow. It's an important hormone in monogamous relationships and bonds that are formed between animals. It's a generally pro-social hormone, so it promotes being good with people, being positive and social behaviors. So oxytocin is not just love, but it's actually about community. Okay, so the more isolated you are, and the more you don't want to deal with people, the more your oxytocin levels could be out of sync, and the more you don't deal with people, the more it's a bit of a vicious cycle. You don't want to be with people if your oxytocin levels are all out of whack, along with other hormones, and the more you're not around people, the more it will get out of whack. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle. So this is where community is so important. Having a supportive community around you really can activate that love hormone. So there you have it, some fun facts about hormones. Now, on this as well, what I want to do, since we're talking about the fluctuations here with hormones, I'll just share with you the interplay that happens male brain here, talking and working at the same time. The thinking the words shut down when I'm doing other tasks here. So, oh dear. Let's not go and talk about the male brain and female brain. We actually did a session earlier in the series of Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show where we dealt with that, female and male brains. But here's the sex hormone production in men and women and how it differs. And I really wanted to talk about this because I have mentioned this in other things, but I haven't shown a graph on this. So obviously men's testosterone level, for example, peaks in their 20s and 30s. Now, women, so technically men's hormone levels peak in their 20s to 30s, and women's, it peaks more towards 30 to 40, and then suddenly decreases. So when we look at estrogen, for example, there is a sudden decrease as you enter menopause. Okay, and that's natural. It's supposed to happen. So when people talk about male menopause, it's, in my opinion, even though it's a condition, it's a syndrome that does happen, in my opinion, it shouldn't be spoken about in that way, because there's something that is disrupting the male hormone testosterone. There's something that messes with it because it's not designed to suddenly drop like a woman's does. And so it's menopause is not something that goes wrong. It's a natural cycle where it's time to stop having children. Okay, whereas men, the testosterone slowly declines. Okay, so it's not a sudden thing. And so if you're suffering from erectile dysfunction or obesity or some of the poor mood, low sex drive, all of these sorts of things, then it's you might end up hearing about it being male menopause, but it's actually something that's interrupting that. And so we need to clean that up. And this is why I'm saying, guys, listen to this information I'm about to share on women's hormones, because it's just as important for you. We're just not talking about it from a male perspective. So, so this is just the thing. This is another bit of a fun fact here, that for women, things naturally turn off, and they're supposed to. It's a natural transitionary time of life, menopause. And it's not supposed to be associated with all of the weird conditions that come about. That's, again, hormonal imbalance symptoms. So what we've got to do is we've actually got to do many of the things that you're actually going to learn about during this session to correct both men's and women's hormones, because the root causes for the hormone dysfunction are ubiquitous in our society today. So they're the fun facts. So it must be about time for us to jump on into the session where we're going to be dealing with preventing breast cancer and achieving hormonal balance. So if you have just joined us for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, welcome along. Please do share this with your loved ones, because this is such an important topic. In the Wealthy and Wise section, we're going to be dealing with less overwhelm and more life. And really that sort of feeds back to preventing breast cancer and achieving hormonal balance, because stress is one of the underlying drivers for hormonal imbalance. So the more calm, cool, and collected we can be, the better off we're going to be. Now, another thing that's interesting on that particular topic about stress is that on the last show, I think it was, I actually talked about the vagus nerve and your vagal tone. And it's a nerve that runs all the way down and linked to so many different issues in the body. And many people today suffer from poor vagal tone. So the nerves, really simplified, the nerves aren't working properly. There are some things that we're doing to mess up the vagal tone. Now, what I was talking about what was I going to mention in terms of that? Poor vagal tone and... Oh, look at that. I've gone and distracted myself. Vagal tone. It'll come back to me. Memory blank. I must need some more nootropic herbs to improve my memory function. Anyway, it'll come back. I'll tell you a bit later on, unless somebody can remind me the words that I was using. But anyway, women's health, preventing breast cancer, achieving hormonal balance. Look, it'll come back to we're totally losing it. Look, anyway, as we're getting underway here for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show and dealing with this important topic, please do let me remind you of this important notice that this information is general and is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any particular disease. So please pay attention to that. So do share this. This is such an important topic, and I wish I remembered what I was going to talk about. Vagal tone. But vagal tone, very important for you. And hey, there we go. It'll come up again. No doubt. But there are all sorts of different ways that you can activate vagal tone and everything, like plunging your face into cold water and all this sort of thing. But we'll come back to that once I remember what it was. Look, we're dealing with some of these underlying issues in the body, and it's always fun to do a live show like this where you can't think on the spot sometimes. But I love some of the information. I've followed some of the information, had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Cheryl Selman, author of Hormone Heresy, a couple of times, and we had the pleasure here in the Savvy team of hosting her to do some large events. And so she said that all hormonal imbalance, all of the things that you might be suffering from that relate to hormonal imbalance is a sign of poor health. Hormonal imbalance, Corey, we're helping you achieve hormonal balance and eliminate hormonal imbalance. Whew. But all of it, if there's anything going on, it's essentially a sign of poor health. Now, I was digging up, we had an actual CD that we put together when we hosted Dr. Selman, and we had a special getaway event with a bunch of the community, and we interviewed her right after, and I'll talk about this a bit later on, right after the Angelina Jolie thing hit the news headlines about having a double mastectomy to prevent breast cancer. And so we wanted to do an interview with Dr. Selman to really uncover some of the insights in that and look at some of the root causes for hormone dysfunction. And so we actually covered that. Interview was on this CD. Now, the CD had tracks and all that sort of thing. So at the moment, we're putting that together in a way that you can purchase the CD, but we want to give that to you for free. So we're actually putting that together at the moment. I'd hoped to have it ready for you for this show, but I didn't get that done. The team didn't get that done. So what I'll do is, if you just message us, message the page and say, hey, send me the audio. Cheryl Selman, we call it, no, it doesn't have a name. It's just Cheryl Selman CD. So just ask us for that and we'll do what we can to get that to you ASAP once we get it all put back together again. Such an important topic there, and we uncovered some of the things I'll be sharing with you during the course of this particular session, but she really went through that. It hit the headlines, and by the way, after she had the double mastectomy, she then went a few years later to have an oophorectomy, so all of the ovaries and fallopian tubes taken out, all in the name of preventing breast cancer. And that's why I'm here to talk to you today. These are very drastic steps for prevention. Okay, very drastic. Now, she had arguably the best medical care that money can buy, and that was the decision she made. And, your decision is your decision about how you reduce your risk. And the reason that she did that is because she had basically the BRCA genes showing up, the mutations that show up that can increase your risk. And so even before that, I saw things on, young women in their 30s being encouraged to have double mastectomies in order to radical mastectomies, really, in order to prevent breast cancer. It hit the headlines in current affairs types of programs and everything. And so I really want to look at that. Is it true prevention? Is this is not the sort of thing we're talking about here on the show. Is that true prevention? Because if we really think about this, okay, so if heart disease is in your family, what? Do you eliminate the heart? No, because we think of that as an essential organ, whereas somehow medicine has come to think of women's bodies in particular as flawed. And these diseases and the hormonal imbalance means that there are flaws, rather than the fact that we're doing things to mess with the hormones. And then that's creating the flaws. So the body isn't the flaw, it's what we're doing in our lifestyle that is the flaw. So let's go back to that. Rather than we can't take out the heart because it's important, right? We can't take out the lungs because we have lung cancer in our family or whatever. But we take out the ovaries and cut off the breasts just because we have a genetic susceptibility. So that means that diabetics should have their feet cut off before they get gangrenous. It means that, it's when you think about it like that, you might go, well, that's just stupid, Corey. Well, so really, in my personal opinion, is a double mastectomy to prevent breast cancer. Because when you really understand what these genes are, it doesn't prevent cancer. It just may have prevented cancer in that particular region of the body. So there's a zero-sum gain, really. So anyway, I get ahead of myself. Ultimately, what we really have to do, ladies, gentlemen, everyone, is we really have to respect our hormones. Okay, we really got to respect our hormones and respect our body. Really look after our body and understand that the things that we're doing in our lifestyle are triggering a cascade of effects throughout the body. So, when Julie respected her hormones, she ended up, losing weight, getting rid of cravings, getting rid of all sorts of challenges with hormonal imbalance. Nadia eliminated thyroid issues, got off HRT, eliminated depression. Angela eliminated endometriosis and period pain that she'd had for years. Emma got rid of PMS pain. Deb eliminated hormonal mood swings. So all of these community members, they simply respected their hormones by following our underlying wellness philosophies. Here's another success story from a community member. I had suffered from polycystic ovary disease for 15 years and was told I would not be able to conceive children naturally because my hormones were so disrupted. I was in constant pain, seemed to have constant PMT issues, and never had periods and did not even ovulate. After following an action plan from the Savvy team for 1 year, I had a scan and was told that I no longer had the problem. I now have regular periods, I am pain-free, and I went on to have children naturally. Thank you, Savvy team community. So they're the sort of things that can happen when you really focus on respecting your hormones and eliminating the underlying drivers. And I think what's important too in this particular success story here is that I followed it for a year. Not, how many weeks do I need to do that before I'm cured? These are lifestyle modifications. And so if you want to eliminate the issues and have hormonal health for the long term, it's about correcting the underlying issues, looking for the root causes, looking for the drivers of the issue. We actually we have a whole hormonal masterclass, a hormonal health masterclass, so you can look that up for more information on general hormonal balance, and it really relates to everything that we're talking about in this particular session too. So in actual fact, some of I won't be able to go through everything in this particular show. I want to give as much information about breast cancer prevention as I possibly can. But look, if you feel as we're going through that you'd like to know more on these particular topics related to breast cancer, uncover some of the research, just ask, let us know. Tell us in the comments, and then maybe we can do a masterclass specifically on what the literature and what the experts say around breast cancer. So just let us know if that particular area does interest you. All right, let's jump on into talking a little bit more in depth about some of these underlying issues. Now, we assert here in the Savvy team that there are two fundamental or underlying causes of most poor health, and that's excessive toxicity and a lack of nutrition. So if you followed us for any length of time, you'll know that we've been talking about that for some time. And so what we need to do is we need to increase the nutrition through diet and supplements to offset the toxicity of a modern world. And then, of course, we need to do whatever we can to turn off the toxic tap and reduce our exposure through food and water and chemicals in the environment and personal care products and all these sorts of things. So we need to find ways of flipping this around, and we will end up achieving better health all around. So we like to say that achieving, in this area, for example, achieving well-being, optimal well-being, slowing aging, and even creating healthier hormones could be as easy as 1, 2, 3. And this is certainly potentially true for you. Decrease your toxin exposure from all sources. Alter your diet. Change to safer products in the home to eliminate the endocrine disrupting chemicals, for example, and we can help you do that. Increase your nutrition. So through diet and supplementation, aiming for the nutrients, the 90 nutrients that your body needs each and every day for optimal well-being, not to just get by, not to not get disease, but to optimize your well-being. And then we specifically look at your areas of great, everyone can benefit from those two, but then we specifically look at some of your areas of greatest weakness and we optimize them. So we optimize the body systems. That may be doing a detox every now and then. So optimizing the detoxification pathways, might be optimizing your gut function and your microbiome. We call the M&Ms, the mitochondria and the microbiome. Then we look at all the other systems in the body as well, using the Savvy Wellness programs to help you optimize your area of greatest weakness, because we all have different areas of weakness. So let's look at it like the branches of a tree. When we optimize the body systems, disease tends to show up in your personal area of greatest weakness. So this is why some of these same issues lead to heart disease in one person and breast cancer in another. They're not independent systems, but the disease showed up in that area because of the genetic weaknesses in your family history, for example. So, if you avert that issue, then it's going to show up somewhere else, though. Just like the branches of a tree here. So we can tweak things to support your area of greatest weakness, of course. But the fundamental things, when we look at a tree here, the fundamentals, the tree needs, it needs light. It needs sunshine. So do you. It needs water. So do you. It needs nutrients from the soil. Well, you need nutrients too. It needs the soil to have the proper microbiological components to be able to convert the actual nutrients and enable the absorption. Well, so do you. So there's a whole bunch of things that are the fundamentals that if you look after, it will support every system in your body. So by doing the fundamentals, you don't just avert breast cancer, for example, but you also look after every other aspect of the body as well. So that's the benefit of holistic focused, a holistic focused methodology. So, we can zoom even further out, for example, and look at the fact that, wellness even takes into account understanding the social support that we have, the environmental exposures, our attitude and our mental thoughts, and even from a spiritual point of view and that emotional side of things, whether that's feeling supported, and even for that matter, feeling like we have a purpose of being here. It's all implicated. And certainly when we deal with hormonal issues, many of these emotional, mental, and even purpose-driven types of things can come up. And if you've ever read any of the work, for example, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, for example, she talked about some of the root causes that she believed for her dysfunctions and cancer, etc., were emotionally driven. Okay, and so certainly we can have toxic emotions that then trigger issues. And I'll share with you something later on about what Dr. Corneli said about the breast and breast cancer. So as far as delving into this, we actually have a free online class that delves into this holistic wellness philosophy a lot more. So I won't jump onto that right now. But look, for your best wellness journey, we believe you need a plan. You need some specific solutions, you'll want guidance, and you'll want a community around you as well. And look, it's hard, it's confusing, I get it. It's hard to put all this information together sometimes. It's hard to know. You go to doctors, you go to practitioners, and they don't have time to educate and support you. And you sort of, how do you put these things into practice? Well, that's where community helps, and that's what we do. Okay, so I want to say well done for investing the time to look at this information, and I just want to encourage you to tap in with our community. Okay, if you want to cut through all the confusion and really have a guiding hand in the process and help you get it done, we can help. Just become part of our community today, and you can start. We have much free information, so you can start for free even. So let's jump on to talking specifically about women's health, preventing breast cancer, and achieving hormonal balance. So if you have just joined us recently, Corey Sievers here with the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in this region of the world right now at time of recording. And so here in the Savvy team, we're wanting to make it more of a breast health, because we believe what you focus on expands. And so we don't want to focus on breast cancer. We want to focus on breast health and hormonal balance. So really helping you to achieve hormonal balance and prevent breast cancer. So that's what we're talking about right now. And really, breast cancer is really one of the big diseases in women. Lifetime risk for women developing breast cancer is 1 in 8. And so look, ladies, look at your friends. Think of how many friends you have. And so statistically, how are you going? Who's it going to be? Because what I want to talk to you, this is statistically, you and your community, by making the changes that I'm sharing today, could dramatically change your personal lifetime risk. Please understand that. Please understand that. That is just so important. Statistics are only relevant to the masses. Today, based on the science of epigenetics, by you making these changes, you could change your risk. You could plummet your risk. Sharing it with your friends and all working together on this and tapping in with what we do, it could plummet all of their risk. So you could almost drop your risk to negligible in your personal community by taking the actions. Because this is the interesting thing. When they look at the importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, we have habitual ways of operating. We have habitual ways of thinking. We also have habitual ways of eating and social norms and everything. And so, if you're around people who do all the wrong things, the tendency for you to be like that is more likely. So the more you can surround yourself with people on, sort of with a lifestyle modification habit, with a desire to optimize their well-being, you will plummet your risk, because all of these risks are really looking at the masses. So right now, theoretically, by you being here and then looking to execute, you have dramatically plummeted the risk for you personally. So understand that, really, this is all, I'm just going through this and sharing with you statistically relevant things. So when we look at Australia is not doing very well in terms of Australia and New Zealand, this region of the world, not doing very well in terms of breast cancer incidence worldwide. So there's something that we're doing that's really, really poor in terms of breast cancer. Now, interestingly, we have overtaken many of the other Western world countries, such as the US and everything, as far as the most obese nation on the planet. So that's interesting, because breast cancer and obesity are firmly correlated. So again, we'll be talking about that, but you've probably heard these things. You probably talked with friends. You probably heard about talking about losing weight and all that sort of thing, and it's hard to take action. So if you have been struggling, then let's help you get it done. Let's work out a plan together and let's get it done. So Australia, real big incidence of breast cancer, and they do know these things. They have agreed medically on these things, that smoking will increase your cancer risk, that being overweight will increase your cancer risk. And I assert that's part of the problem with Australia and New Zealand, that alcohol consumption will increase it, that UV radiation in the wrong form will increase it, that a poor diet will increase it, and that infections and being physically inactive, these are all of the things that will increase your personal cancer risk. And they also know that these are statistically relevant as well. So when we look at it from the point of view of the breast cancer gene, so to speak, as they say it. So let me fix this glitch up, because you've probably heard about this whole issue of okay, bear with me. So when we deal with genetics, you've probably heard of this whole thing about it being genetic and linked to the BRCA genes, for example. And I was referring to that earlier when I was talking about Angelina Jolie and having a double mastectomy and all that sort of thing. So, you've probably heard about it being genetic, and certainly if you have breast cancer in your family, you might want to pay even more attention to the information that we're sharing, and you may even want to get yourself tested to see whether you do have these gene mutations. But these genes named the BRCA genes, okay, because they actually named it. So Marie Claire King named them breast cancer genes 1 and 2. And yet they're not breast cancer genes. It's just that her area of interest was in breast cancer and understanding the genetics implicated in breast cancer. Because believe it or not, until then, when she first started the research in the 70s and onwards, they really believed that breast cancer and all these female cancers was viral. And so then they started looking at genetics. So understand that that's the problem with medicine. They look for the one thing. See, 20th century medicine really believed it was the bug or the virus. So if we just found the bug and attacked it, and killed the bug, then we could cure the disease. Okay, they didn't think about the terrain, the environment of the body. They went for the bug. And then they moved to genetics and thinking, well, it was the gene. Well, genetics are implicated. Bugs are implicated. But what we do each and every day is more implicated. And so there's actually been a movie made about her, not with her permission or knowledge, but a movie made about her uncovering these genes as such. And so BRCA1 and BRCA2 don't really just relate to breast cancer. They're actually what are called tumor suppressor genes. So what happens is that these are natural genes that do what they're supposed to do. They help in the replication of DNA to turn off any over replication and of the cells, and that can lead to a tumor. So, you know, what happens is if they don't work the way they're supposed to work. Basically, something throws them off. And so the theory is that having a mutation in either of these genes increases your risk for breast and ovarian cancer, and we do know that it does increase that risk. So, but 45 to 65% of women who inherit a mutation will develop breast cancer by the age of 70, according to the statistics. But you'll see that you have more control over than you have been led to believe. Because when we look at it, less than 10% of cancers in the US, for example, are linked to the inherited gene mutation. So most people who get breast cancer actually have no family history of breast cancer. So something else is going on. And that's really what I want to talk to you about here. So when we look at the story of Angelina Jolie and what she did, now lots of different women have made the decision to have these radical surgeries in order to prevent breast cancer, whether it be a double mastectomy or having their ovaries and fallopian tubes removed. Many women have made that decision, and that's okay. We don't want to make any judgment calls on that because it's a tough decision and you've had to make that. If that's been you, you've had to make that. So we want to talk about it, regardless of whether you've made that decision, they're tumor suppressor genes. That does not, has not changed anything. So if you have cardiovascular disease and it progresses and you end up with a quadruple bypass and you have open heart surgery, have a quadruple bypass, and you still don't make any of the changes to the underlying things that led to the bypass, led to the heart disease, you're going to have a heart disease develop again because you didn't correct the underlying conditions. So if you have a radical mastectomy and an oophorectomy, in other words, we take all of the problematic bits out, according to the medical model, that women's bodies are innately flawed and we've got to take all those bits out before they wreak havoc. Then if you still don't correct the underlying conditions that we're about to talk about, then the cancer will simply manifest somewhere else because there's a lot more going on than just genetics. We have control over our genetics more than you've ever really understood. So, one of the things that I wanted to chat with you about related to this is that, yes, so what happened is Angelina Jolie actually carried the mutation. There was breast cancer in her family. She carried the mutation, and so there's a lot of fear around that. But she saw her mother die, her grandmother, her aunt, all to breast cancer. And so she made the choice to have the double mastectomy. Then she ended up with a cancer scare where she saw inflammatory markers in the blood. And these are, as they said, possible indicators of early cancer. So, and I want to talk about that. Remember, part of what they test for is inflammatory markers. Let's talk about that later. So she made the choice to then have the prophylactic oophorectomy. So have them out before they cause damage. What did that mean? That then meant, so in other words, this is when we really think about this. So she had the double mastectomy. So to prevent, prophylactic mastectomy. So to prevent breast cancer. Then she had the oophorectomy, ovaries out. Then because of that, now she's in early menopause, basically. So then she wears a hormone patch, has an intrauterine device that secretes progesterone. So she's basically on HRT. Well, get this. They know very well that HRT dramatically increases the risk of breast cancer. What? What was that? So, so we take off the breasts, we take out the ovaries. Now we're in early menopause, and now we know that that hormone replacement therapy dramatically increases the risk of cancers and breast cancer in particular. But what? We don't have to worry because you don't have any breasts? What about the fact that there are already markers of inflammation? And you'll learn what that relates to. And what about these exogenous hormones? Are they not doing anything else? And what about the rest of your lifestyle? Are you doing anything to change your lifestyle? Are you doing anything to reduce stress? You know, and so famous people are often under a lot of stress, not maybe financially, but in terms of the public eye. So, weighing all the other options. So she's ended up on all of these hormones and all that sort of thing. And it's really important to understand that there are other things to do. Now, medically, they use hormone. They use, for example, even birth control pills. They use hormones. This is what it said. It's important. This is what the literature said. It's important to know that surgery isn't the only option for women. Preventative strategies such as taking birth control pills, getting frequent mammograms, and having the fallopian tubes removed are all important things to consider. There's not one comment about changing your lifestyle. Not one comment about changing your lifestyle, and yet remember, they already know. They've already, looking back at what we were sharing before, they already know that there are all these things that could dramatically decrease your risk. What about finding out, are you doing all of those things? Are all of those things being executed upon? And that's the whole thing. It's like really understanding that there's so much we can actually do to improve our health, but the question is, are we doing them? So interesting topic here when we look at Mark Twain, who was smoking here in this picture. But it's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Now, look, I understand. I'm just sharing that with you because in this area, many people sort of think they're getting the best care. And so when we're talking about Angelina Jolie, she had the best care money could buy. And she was obviously operating from fear. There are so many things that we can do rather than radical surgery, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's based on that model that especially women's bodies are flawed, and all of these things are actually throwing your or dramatically causing you problems. So let's take them out before they cause problems. Actually leads me to this issue. I know this is an emotional issue, but I want you to pay attention to this, and I want you to make the changes that we suggest and release the fear and make the changes. This book here that I read 20 years ago, Ralph Moss, The Cancer Industry. Now, he believes that there are more people making money from cancer than suffer from it. So he says that they don't want to cure it. And by the way, he actually was the director of public relations at the largest cancer center in the world, the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute. And guess why he got the sack? He blew the whistle on a cover-up for natural alternatives. So, it's Mark Twain was right. It's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. So much of the focus is on these genes. So let's look at the literature. Let's actually look at the literature directly from Marie Claire King, who was really looking at this. And this is the published literature on the inherited BRCA gene mutations. Now, they looked at this. I mean, they've done different studies and everything, but this is just one example here. So the risk of breast and ovarian cancer was determined in the Ashkenazi Jewish women with inherited mutations. So first of all, there's one thing we've got to ask about. We've got to ask about that is what sort of lifestyle in particular, what did they all do? This is not even across the board. This is one particular sect of people. Did they do something collectively that increased their risk? So they selected 1,008 cases, regardless of family history, carried out molecular analysis across entire families, and they said that the lifetime risk of breast cancer amongst female mutation carriers was 82%. All right. And so that's what's usually quoted. Oh my God, you have an 80% chance of developing breast cancer if you have the mutation. Okay? But what did it, here it is in the literature. Why aren't we talking about this next bit that they found? Risks appear to be increasing with time. Breast cancer risk by age 50 among mutation carriers born before 1940 was 24%. But those born after 1940 was 67%. So hang on. Are we actually saying that the risk is increasing with time according to the literature? How can it be purely genetic if risk is increasing with time? Because that risk is very quickly, that's not genetic. You can't, genetics don't change that quickly. Something from the environment and lifestyle is changing for the risk to increase substantially, right? So what's changed since, though, for those, let's ask, if you were born before 1940, you start documenting what's different in the way you ate and lived back then compared to people born since the war, post-war, for example. Interesting, isn't it? Here's what I know off the top of my head when I just jotted down some things just before we started. There's less chemicals in the environment, documented. There's less inflammatory seed oils. So before the 1940s, they had butter and lard and suet and all these sorts of things. They weren't encouraged to have polyunsaturated vegetable oil and soybean oil and canola oil and all those sorts of things. We know that for a fact. They had less grains. They might have instead, for example, had bacon and eggs for breakfast and not, or skipped breakfast and just gone without and waited till lunch or whatever. Believe it or not, yep, they've often practiced intermittent fasting back then. And they were profoundly thin. Most people were thin. Obesity was rare. So they had less inflammatory seed oils. They had less grains. Rarely did they have grains. And if they did have grains, then, it was they were healthier versions of them because they weren't drenched with glyphosate, Roundup, basically. So by the way, the biggest, the highest usage for Roundup as a glyphosate, which is again nasty stuff for the genetics and for endocrine disruption, used on all of the seed oil crops, all of the grains that come from the seed oils and all the grains. So if you eliminated seed oils and grains, you'd eliminate most of the pesticide issues that we're really dealing with today. So they had less snacking. They didn't eat between meals, so they didn't have high insulin levels. They practically had no packaged food before the 1940s. So they had practically no phthalates. Now, all right, they didn't have Roundup, but they had DDT. Well, it's turned out that even though DDT was banned, Roundup is showing up to be worse, and much of the process for getting it approved as safe has been starting to be uncovered as being doctored. So, are we looking at it? Look at all the things. We didn't have all the toxic blue lights. We didn't have computer screens. We didn't have all these sorts of things. So, what has changed is the lifestyle and environment. So, reasoning backwards, if we change our lifestyle and environment, whether we have the genes or not, we will dramatically reduce our personal risk. We may not be able to change statistically, but we can change our own personal destiny. So when we look at this particular information from Dr. Ruth Patterson, I mentioned to you before, she's the professor at the University of California, San Diego, and she's the leader of the cancer prevention program there. She said that less than 5% of total breast cancers are due to genetic factors, while 65 to 75% of breast cancers can be traced to lifestyle factors. For the vast majority of women, it is your lifestyle choices that makes the biggest difference in your risk. So right now, I mean, our community is important. But statistics don't matter to you. What matters is what you do from today onwards. Let me share a video with you from Bruce Lipton, who really talks about this concept of epigenetics and the power of that. So let's take a listen to that.
My name is Bruce Lipton, and I'm a former research scientist. My history was based on cloning stem cells. A lot of people think stem cells are a new understanding in science, but I was cloning stem cells 43 years ago in 1967. And through my research, I found a different path in understanding medicine and health with a different view on genetics, which is now called epigenetics, the new science. In school, most people learn the science of genetics, which is the belief that genes control our traits. This science is really based on the fact that we get our genes from our mother and father at the moment of conception, and that these genes at that moment of conception actually will determine the rest of our lives in regard to our physical, emotional, and behavioral characteristics. A new science is called epigenetics. And epigenetics is an understanding that genes are not self-actualizing, meaning genes do not turn on and off. Genes are just blueprints. And the significance of that is that in order to engage a blueprint, it's not the blueprint's activity, it's the contractor's activity, the one who reads the blueprint that controls the blueprint. So in epigenetics, it's a science of how environmental information selects the genes and can modify the readout of the genes. And this becomes very significant because in genetic control, the old story, we are victims of our genetics. And the new story, epigenetics, because we can change the readout of the genes, we can then become masters of our genetic. And this becomes important because we actually control our health with our beliefs, our perceptions, and our attitudes about life.
Now, is that a powerful statement or what? So who has control? Who actually has control? You have control. You control your health with your beliefs, your lifestyle, and your attitudes about life. So that's what I said. From today, you can dramatically decrease your personal risk of breast cancer and hormonal imbalance issues by taking action. Now, as I was saying, knowing that you have responsibility is one thing, but then actually getting it done amongst your busy life and understanding how to put it all together and all that sort of thing, and that's where we can help. So if you have been struggling with getting it done and actually taking action and knowing what to do and all that sort of thing, then just tap in with the community and let's help you work out a plan. It just makes logical sense to me, but that's of course in your hands. You are indeed in control. So moving on with more information around this whole topic of preventing breast cancer and achieving hormonal health. What are some other things that make a big difference? Well, chronic stress. You just heard Lipton talk about when you think about epigenetics and that chronic stress, negative thinking, poor attitudes has a dramatic impact on the hormonal system. And so if you again trying to put all this together and you've been struggling with that and not knowing where to turn, then dealing with your stress and looking for support and that is so important. One of the issues today also when we look at breast cancer risk and everything is women are it's an interesting topic because I got to be careful here being a bloke and everything. There's a lot of body image shaming type of stuff going on there, and women sort of fighting for, I can choose to be the way I am and I'm perfectly fine the way I am even though I'm overweight. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. We agree with that. But we're having a health discussion here, not a body image shaming discussion. And being overweight is linked to a higher incidence of breast cancer. So we're just having a factual conversation here. No body image shaming. So losing weight would be wise. When we're dealing with chronic stress, many women also fighting for equality and equal pay in the workplace and all of this sort of thing, and fighting to have male-dominated roles and break through the glass ceiling. That is a different discussion, okay? So let's not have that discussion, but let's have the stress discussion, because the more stress you're under, the higher risk of breast cancer you're going to have. So being a corporate high flyer is going to increase your breast cancer risk, according to really looking at the information with chronic stress and everything. It's going to mess up your hormones. You could end up with anovulatory cycles and hormonal imbalance and all sorts of things. So, let's really look at it. Just make sure your lifestyle is in line with your priorities. And so we're not making any, hey, do what you will. We're here to lessen, we're here to help you to understand what you can do to reduce your personal risk. And so if you are working in a stressful environment, we can help with that. We can help you to offset some of the damaging effects of stress with adaptogenic herbs and nutrition to help you there. So don't just cross your fingers and hope. If you're at a higher risk, take action, okay? So we can definitely help in that area. But I love this particular cartoon from Randy Glasbergen. You need strong medicine to relieve your stress. I'm prescribing a puppy. Sometimes I think I can relate there. So look, but while we're talking about emotional stuff and stress and all that, so Dr. Lee Erin Keneally, who really works with women in the US with breast cancer and everything, she believes that problems with the breast can stem from unrest in the nest. So do understand that there is definitely a community, a family, and especially for women being the primary caregivers and the nurturing, having the nurturing hormones, when there is problems in the family unit, then that can lead to some emotional flow-on effects as well. So problems with the breast can stem from unrest in the nest. And that's really why we have always been so focused on really helping you to reach that high level of wellness and look holistically. We've been so much into personal development education in our organization and all that sort of thing. And so we do understand that the emotional side comes in, but we're just not really delving into that heavily in this particular session. And certainly our original teacher our original mentor that we studied with for years, Dr. John Whitman Ray, said that given the right conditions, including physical, emotional, and mental preparedness, your body will always heal itself. So it's powerful when you really think about that from the point of view of reducing your breast cancer risk. So let's look at some of the things that we can do. And certainly I've been a big fan of saying an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of intervention. And this is based on Benjamin Franklin's quote that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, that's why, I pretty much now say an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of intervention, because when we're talking about double mastectomies and all of that sort of thing, that's an intervention. That's not really prevention. So what we really need to do is zoom back out and focus on prevention. Now, most of the tactics of prevention out there are focused on early detection. So it's not really prevention. Funny cartoon here. Yes, I did have my mammogram today. Why do you ask? And when you really think about mammograms, if you have a tumor present, the pressure of the mammogram can damage the tumor and spread the tumor, and that is documented. Also, a mammogram emits more radiation than like a couple of hundred chest x-rays. So that's documented. And so they have actually moved in much of the world. I'm not actually certain about Australian regulations, but they used to recommend mammograms for women in their 30s, and they've bumped that out in many countries because they're worried about the fact that the screening was actually triggering breast cancer based on the evidence. So, mammograms are, I guess they use it as a screening tool, but it is the standard. It's the standard of care in medicine. So doctors have to recommend it. Understand that. They have to recommend it because it's the standard of care. Even if they don't believe in it, they have to recommend it. Standard of care. It's part of the system. So that's why we say educate yourself. And they know that this creates damaging effects. And so there's even linkages. Some people believe that once once the screening promotional tactics, what do they call it? Programs. No, I say promotional tactics. They say, community outreach programs to encourage older women to screen their breasts. They believe that there was an increase in breast cancer since then, and they don't know whether it was the testing or the fact that it was the early detection from more people getting screened. Interesting. Was it the fact that we screened that found it, or was it the fact that we screened that triggered it? Well documented there. So, but nevertheless, I digress. It is standard of care. So just accept that the diagnosis will be, a mammogram will be used from a diagnostic point of view. So if you're suspected of having breast cancer, they will do a mammogram. And look, if you're going to enter into the system, that's what you've got to do. But here's the thing, ladies. The changes in the breast tissue, even before you felt a lump, were going on 10 years before. So it's just you didn't know. The changes were going on 10 years before. That lump that you felt, things were going on 10 years before. So what if we acted truly preventative and we looked at the things that really do lead to breast cancer and we looked to make the changes whether or not we are scared of our own personal risk? Because there's a flow-on effect to all the rest of our health and well-being in the now. We prevent breast cancer, prevent heart disease, prevent all these diseases of the 21st century. But in the now, we feel better. We have more energy. We lose weight. We look sexier in our skinny jeans. There's benefits now as well as long-term benefits to living a healthier lifestyle. So screening is important, but it doesn't necessarily need to be mammogram screening. So I liked this cartoon. You see the naked man there? Again? But we did testicular and breast cancer screening last night. You can never be too safe. So, look, early screening. So, ladies, certainly, looking to screen, learning to do self-examination, really, really important. Looking at other ways of ultrasounds, MRIs, those sorts of things. But infrared thermography. See, when we look at the fact that inflammation is the root cause of many diseases, you can pick up inflammatory changes in the body yonks before you're going to feel any lumps in the breast through infrared thermography. But because it's not bulk billed, it's something that you have to really look at, do yourself. It's not part of the system. But many breast cancer people do recommend it. Dr. Lee Erin Keneally, she recommends it. But as she said, as a doctor, the standard of care is mammography, so I have to recommend that. Even if she doesn't believe it herself, she has to recommend it. So just know the system that you're dealing with, and then you can work within that. It's really that our system is built for trauma care. We are very fortunate to have the life-saving technology that has been developed. So we've made great inroads, and we should be very grateful that we can be put back together by proficient surgeons and doctors that can really put us back together if we let ourselves go. But that doesn't stop us from taking the action now to not let ourselves go. That's what we're here about in the community, to really share with you, share with interested parties and interested communities everywhere about what they can do in the now to reduce their own personal risk. You can never be too safe. Lots of those self-examinations. All right. So, preventing breast cancer and achieving hormonal balance. What are some of the underlying triggers for hormonal balance? Well, we go through these in more depth in our hormonal health masterclass. And I want to sort of categorize them, but they're all important. Endocrine disrupting chemicals and medications can be a trigger for hormonal imbalance. A high carb sugar diet that leads to insulin resistance. This is a big issue. So too many carbs in our diet, too many grains, too much sugar. Vitamin, mineral, protein, and fatty acid deficiencies, so nutritional deficiencies. poor digestion, bad gut flora, and in fact, even leaky gut, where toxins are getting into the bloodstream and causing, and parasites even, and inflammatory agents causing an autoimmune reaction in the body that then leads to inflammation systemically in the body. A toxic liver can be a problem, or a liver that is impaired in its ability to detoxify. Because if you have too much exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals and estrogens and all that sort of thing and medications, and your liver detoxification ability is impaired, then you can't process those toxins. So even many people who aren't really that much exposed, they say, but I do what I can. I reduce my chemicals and all that sort of thing, and I'm still got problems. That's because you may need to optimize your liver function. Chronic stress, as I mentioned before, poor sleep patterns and circadian biology. Adrenal exhaustion. This is one of the things, again, could be triggered from chronic stress and poor sleep patterns. And that's one of the root causes that we go through for many women with their PMS and menopausal symptoms and all that sort of thing. But ongoing dysfunction in the body then leads to, more prevalent, more gross examples of dysfunction, such as breast cancer, hypothyroidism, weight issues, as we dramatically linked to breast cancer risk. There are some physical issues, for example, injuries and previous operations and what sort of thing that can trigger a bit of a change in the structural component, but there have been functional changes that we've got to look at first, and then unresolved emotional wounds, as I mentioned there. For example, the problems with the breast begin with unrest in the nest, just as one example. So what I want to do here is, all of these are so important. And when you look at this, you might get overwhelmed and everything. And that's, again, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you don't know where to turn and where to start and everything, let's help you work out a plan. And really pay attention to the session that I'm going to be doing later in the Less Overwhelm, More Life as well. Because what happens is all of these things can be overwhelming because there's so many ideas. But whether it be reducing overwhelm and improving things going on in your household and your life and your goals and all that sort of thing, or whether it be beginning to execute upon health goals, the overwhelm is because there's so much going on. But there are tactics that you can do just to bring it back to, being a bit more centered and going, what's the next logical step? So again, if you're overwhelmed with all of these different ideas, ask yourself, what's the next logical step? Let's do that. Okay, so if that's reach out to us and do a free How Can We Help Discovery session. Next logical step. There's no overwhelm. That's just the step. That's just the next step, for example. Or read the blog on the 12 points for the Eat Savvy diet. I'll talk about that in just a moment. That's the next logical step. Next logical step might be, I've been meaning to go to the doctor and just get blood tests to see how I'm going. Whatever that may be. What's the next logical step? Don't get overwhelmed by the big picture. Here, I want to share with you, because we've got all sorts of people from all over the world that are listening to this sort of thing, and everyone's going to sort of come at this from a different angle and have different issues and all that sort of thing. So I'm speaking to all the different things that are important. But as you're listening to it, just keep thinking, well, what's the next logical step for me? How do I put this into practice? What do I need to do to get this done? Okay? And that's what we're here to really to educate you and inform you about the sort of tactics that can be done to stack the odds in your favor. So recently I did what we call our Wellness Whiteboard Wednesday sessions on breast health awareness, and I went through 3 topics there. And so you might want to go and have a look at that and share that. That's on our blog, and also on Facebook and YouTube too. But, what I want to do is sort of go into it and break it up a little bit more, because there's so many different things, as I just mentioned, there's so many different factors. What I've really looked to do as much as I can is classify them together and simplify them for you, so that you sort of, rather than trying to think of all these different factors, you know that there are some simple action steps and sort of classifications of action steps. That's my goal. And so this is what I've worked out for you in terms of this preventing breast cancer and hormonal and improving hormonal balance. So regarding breast cancer, as I said before, related to Dr. Ruth Patterson, she said that 65 to 75% of breast cancer cases can be traced back to lifestyle factors. So for the vast majority of women, it is your lifestyle choices that make the biggest difference in your risk. So what are these things? How do we boil down some of these things that we've been talking about? Number one, excessive toxins and growth factors. So if you have excess toxin exposure from your life, so for example, chemicals in the environment, chemicals in your home, from the personal care that you use, from the cleaning products that you use, from the air fresheners, from those automatic pumping fresheners that are everywhere, that are full of things, endocrine disrupting chemicals, from all of those sorts of sources, they can trigger problems. Also, excess growth factors. So too much estrogen from some other source, whether it be chemical, medication, whether it be that you're overweight and your fat cells are producing excess estrogen, whether it be that you have impaired detoxification, so you have too much estrogen in your body because your liver can't detoxify it. So in essence, we boil it down to basically too many chemicals, either natural chemicals, whether hormone chemicals, whether toxins like phthalates and BPA and all that sort of thing. There's too much bad stuff going on. So we've got to really reduce the bad stuff. We need to improve the good stuff, the nutrition. So the next major topic here is poor nutrition, so lack of nutrients, and you're starting to see the similarity with what I went through before, that here in the Savvy team, we assert that there are, basically two fundamental causes of all disease, and that's too much toxicity and not enough nutrition. You're starting to see this. These three things of what I put together by scanning through all of the breast cancer prevention literature that I could find, and all of the doctors that have written books and these sorts of things. So excess toxins and growth factors, poor nutrition and poor metabolic health. So in other words, poor metabolic health would be things such as metabolic syndrome, so being overweight, not having your insulin levels under control, having poor blood sugar balance. So, those sorts of issues that will be producing too much insulin, which is a growth factor. So then that leads back to number one. It might be your fat cells might be producing too much estrogen, and that's a growth factor. That puts us back to number one. There might be not enough of the supportive nutrition for all of your hormones to be released. So, for example, if you're deficient in minerals, your hormones won't function properly. If you're deficient in essential fatty acids, your hormones won't function properly. So poor nutrition and general metabolic health could include the diet there as well. But then when we look at it, your diet could have too many toxins and also poor nutrition. So it's a crossover. So you can see that these are all interrelated as well. So there's no one thing. There's no one thing that you can do. And, often medicine's looking for the one thing, the magic bullet. Whereas, when you think about it, in Alzheimer's disease, and the way Dr. Dale Bredesen puts it in terms of Alzheimer's disease, that if you think of there's all these holes in the roof that lead to, if you think of Alzheimer's disease caused by many different issues, and let's say there's 100 holes in the roof, we don't just treat one thing. We've got to plug all the holes in the roof, and then we reverse the condition. Well, breast cancer is the same. There's not one thing. If we just look for the gene, that's not the solution. We've already covered that. If we just look for the one herb, that's not the solution. We already covered that. So what we've got to do is we've got to fix the holes in the roof. And a lot of them interplay. Okay, so that's why we're looking more holistically here. Number 3, chronic inflammation and impaired detoxification. Okay, so impaired ability to get rid of the chemicals that you're exposed to. And this chronic inflammation, which could be caused by poor nutrition and metabolic health, excess toxins and growth factors. There is a dramatic interplay that's going on. So if we can clean up the 1, 2, 3 here, then we can dramatically decrease your risk of all diseases, and breast cancer being one of them. So looking at the exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals here, and plus there's medications and the pill and all those sorts of things are really, really important too. Many women who are having hormonal problems, for example, men too, have not fully eliminated the number one cause of the problems, and that's exposure to chemicals. The World Health Organization released a list of 800 chemicals used in personal care and home care products and cleaning products that they identified as being directly capable of interfering with the hormone receptors in the body. So some of these have been linked to breast cancer, to prostate cancer, to many other problems. So it's not about panicking, it's about changing brands. Don't procrastinate on this. Touch base with a Savvy Team Wellness Guide, and we can really help you to change to safer. The endocrine system is so important when you really look at it here. So as I mentioned earlier in the session, that they're starting to learn that there's so much involved in the endocrine system, that it's not just the sex hormones anymore, that different aspects of the body are all producing hormones. So there's no question now from the World Health Organization that it's not affecting us, right? Back in 2002, they believed that it might just be affecting wildlife and maybe the sex organs in certain populations. But now they say that endocrine disruption is no longer limited to estrogenic and androgenic and thyroid pathways. What they mean is the sort of sex organ pathways. They said that chemicals interfere with metabolism, fat storage, bone development, the immune system, and that suggests that all endocrine systems can and will be affected by exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now, I feel very grateful that I eliminated exposure to these things 30 years ago, because I've been working with safe brands for that time and looking to turn off the toxic tap. This has been an area of study that I started to look into in the early 90s. But if you haven't taken that step, or you've been succumb to the greenwashing out there, because there are many brands that because of marketing, they just pull the wool over your eyes. For example, you can have something that says, for example, contains. So this particular product contains organic, natural, herbal ingredients. Awesome. So you think it contains only all natural, herbal, organic ingredients, whereas the label just says it contains. So, you put a bit in there. So a really nice cake does contain eggs. Cake contains eggs. Wonderful. What else does it contain? It wouldn't be a cake if it didn't contain a few other things, right? Contains eggs. But many people don't think like that. You may have thought, I never realized that. Of course. What else is in there? And labeling requirements in many different countries mean that if it's below a certain percentage, they don't have to put some of the things on the label even. And so there's a big call out there for more and more better labeling. So it's only the responsible companies that put everything on the label, even though they actually theoretically don't have to. So this is a big topic, and this is an important topic, and this is what we help you to do to really eliminate the use of harmful ingredients. It's just one of the ways of reducing your overall risk. But these are all the things that the World Health Organization found that were linked to exposure to EDCs. Breast cancer being just one of the things. And so all the rest of the things are beyond the scope of this particular session, but it's important to understand that there are all these different sources, and they can be absorbed by ingestion, inhalation, and skin absorption. So, the things that we focus on helping you tackle, for example, pesticides and herbicides, reducing that by focusing on the Eat Savvy diet, food, drink, water, and in particular, cleaning products, air fresheners, personal care, and bathroom products. You hardly need to change your lifestyle, and you can really turn off the toxic tap. That's the great thing by focusing on that particular area. Dramatically change your risk. So it's interesting that a lot of the times people focus on the persistent chemicals, the heavy metals and all those sorts of things that are more persistent in the body chemistry, because they're the more toxic and the more persistent. But if you change your home care cleaning products, your personal care products, there can be a noticeable change in urine and blood tests in 3 weeks of some of these chemicals. 3 weeks. So, you really, when you look at what Bruce Lipton said, when you control your health and your life by what you think and your lifestyle and your attitudes about life, you can eliminate hormone or dramatically reduce your hormone disruption in 3 weeks. Proven, can be even proven with urine testing and blood testing. One of the biggest issues that, for example, Dr. Erin Keneally, she says that phthalates are huge when she does testing for breast cancer patients. Huge. And it's so easy to just change to safer and eliminate phthalates. But many people just don't believe that it makes that much difference. So they don't do it. They don't care about what's in their shampoo. They don't care about it. They just keep using the toxic stuff because it's easy and convenient and cheap, and let's put a air freshener over there because the place is a bit stinky, and endocrine disrupting chemicals. So I think that it's probably more important that you reduce your risk of breast cancer than worry about whether the place is a little bit of needs a bit of freshening. Anyway, I digress. And blokes, please do not ignore this just because we're talking about breast cancer prevention. EDCs have been linked to numerous male fertility problems, erectile dysfunction, declining sperm count, prostate problems, and cancers in men too. So if you want the gun to function, then you want to eliminate these things. And we did a whole web class on that, on the 9 nasties and just some of the things that can be lurking in your bathroom. So check out that. Also, if you wanted to message, wherever you're joining with YouTube or on the listening to the podcast or whatever, if you want a report on this, if you want the actual report on endocrine disrupting chemicals, just message our Facebook page, EDC, and follow the instructions, and we can get you that actual report from the World Health Organization. If you just want the 15 ingredient list that we share of the things that you can check your bathroom, go into your bathroom, check some of the most prevalent chemicals, then just message the word chemicals, and we can get those reports across to you. But really, we help you change to safer. We can point you in the right direction for things that can really help to turn off the toxic tap. So another success story here from the community. We'd been trying to fall pregnant for 3 years. After changing to safer products in the home as suggested by the Savvy team, and both of us being on a range of nutritional support, in 9 weeks we fell pregnant. Plus, in my previous pregnancies, I had terrible morning sickness, but this time no morning sickness symptoms. So far, and it feels freaking amazing. There you have it. 3 years trying to fall pregnant and turn off the toxic tap. Amazing stuff happens. Just by removing the toxic load in my home, my PMS pain has gone. Before, I used to be in so much pain I'd call in sick to work from the pain. That was Dragisa sharing that one there. So we're back to this. Reduce the toxic load and start to reduce the growth factors, excess insulin and excess estrogen in your system. Number 2, do something about the poor nutrition and metabolic health. So we need to increase nutrition and improve your overall diet, help you lose weight. We have weight loss programs to help you really rebalance your metabolic health that are based on holistic wellness philosophies. Most of them out there, even many of our colleagues, they just don't understand some of the underlying triggers. And so they almost haphazardly get the job done, but without the long-term wellness philosophy that we here have been, really educating people on for the last 30 years. Number 3, chronic inflammation and impaired detoxification. So when we think about the toxic exposure that we just dealt with there, we've reduced these EDCs, reduce insulin, reduce estrogen. So remember I was talking before about how, people back in the, before the 1940s, like those born before 1940, had, even with the BRCA genes, so the genetic family history of breast cancer, had a lower risk just because they were born before the 1940s compared to those born after 1940. And they only did that broad classification, okay? And so we asserted that it was obesity and inflammatory seed oils and grains and glyphosate poisoning and snacking and all these sorts of things. Well, let's just look at this and what they do know. They have well documented the fact that obesity is linked to all of these issues, such as type 2 diabetes, cholesterol problems, cancer risk, mood disorders, heart disease, reproductive disorders, and liver disease. And you see the arrows going both ways. So, there's dramatic crossover effects in all of these different things. So then when we look at some of the other documented evidence medically, they know that obesity, poor food intake, physical activity, and all of the implicated things can lead to increased risk of cancers. So again, we don't just take out as pictured here, we don't just take out the uterus and the fallopian tubes and the ovaries and the breasts to produce breast cancer. What say we actually get active, lose some weight, improve our diet, get all of the upstream issues dealt with. This is in medical literature. These are all in medical textbooks. So they've even documented some of the pathways that lead from all of these hormonal imbalances, these growth factors that increase cancer risk. So it begs the question. So I don't want to go into all these pathways. I just want to show you these are from medical studies. They know this. So my question to you then is, if they know this and you're at risk of breast cancer, why are you being encouraged to have mastectomies and oophorectomies and all of these sorts of things when there are many other things that you can do to decrease your risk? Why are you encouraged to go into things like tamoxifen and long-term pill, like hormone therapy types of things to reduce your risk, when they know that there are all these other things? Why? I won't say it, but people such as Ralph Moss have said that it's just because it's an industry. Okay, so there are more people making money from cancer than are actually dying from it. So it's just important to take control. Now, we don't usually delve into the political agendas here in our wellness community, but I just really want to, I guess, shake you a bit and say, let's do something about this together. When we speak about political stuff here too, the food pyramid is pretty much broken. If you want to look like the food pyramid, eat like the food pyramid. So is the food pyramid all wrong? Well, we assert that it is, and we're starting to see some changes, fortunately, in government recommendations. We believe that the food pyramid was really based on the agricultural revolution and the promotion of all of these things such as grains and commercial seed oils. And they're all the inflammatory things triggering rampant inflammation in the population, leading to disease. So, let's just say that it wasn't an agenda and that they just made a mistake. It's time to admit that we made a mistake and stop eating like the food pyramid. But, because much of this information is new, even nutritionists are still promoting outdated information. So, let's say this, for example, Pure, White and Deadly, Dr. John Yudkin. He was a British professor of nutrition, and he sounded the alarm on sugar in 1972 and wrote the book Pure, White and Deadly. right? He said that if only a fraction of what we know about the effects of sugar were to be revealed in relation to any other additive in food, he said it would be permanently banned. That's what he said. The book did well, but he paid a high price for it back in the 70s because prominent nutritionists combined with all of the food industry people, they set up to destroy his reputation, and he never recovered. His career never recovered, and he died in 95 a disappointed and largely forgotten man. So, and it was only really this book was, again, Professor Robert Lustig, with his focus on that, he just couldn't believe it. He said, not only was Yudkin defeated, but he was in fact buried. And when Professor Robert Lustig found, he's an anti-sugar campaigner, and when he found out about his book and searched for it and couldn't find it, and he eventually tracked down a copy after submitting a request to a university. When he read the introduction 30 years later, he said what he wrote in there is he said, "Holy crap, this guy got there 35 years before me." And he's the one that Lustig republished Yudkin's book. So for the last, probably 50 years, the dietary arch villain, definitely the last 30 years, has been saturated fat. And so when Yudkin was conducting his research into the effects of sugar, the nutritional orthodoxy really was starting to assert itself, and that the central tenet was a low-fat diet. And Yudkin led really a whole bunch of campaigns really against sugar, but ultimately it was just stopped. So we need to really look at this. Like when we look at the cartoon from Glasberg in here. The high carb diet I put you on 20 years ago gave you diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. Oops. Oops indeed. So we need to make some diet changes, and it's the promotion of grains, even healthy whole grains, that is part of the problem we assert. Because grains are loaded with inflammatory things such as lectins, and many of the gluten-free people get off gluten and they move on to other grains that are still full of lectins, inflammatory agents, full of phytates and things that strip the minerals from your bones even. Grains are not really as healthy as you've been led to believe. So, we've got to do something about making some diet changes. And part of it is that people misunderstand when we look at sugar and then we look at grains, to understand that the body, these things trigger insulin resistance. So these grains trigger insulin resistance. One piece of bread, again, it breaks down into many spoonfuls of sugar. And only 1 teaspoon of sugar can actually be sort of stored in the blood. The body then says, we've got to do something about this, because the body wants to reduce that blood sugar. And so it's designed to send that sugar across to fat. So when you're eating too many carbs, you are making fat. In the process, you're also increasing your insulin levels and ending up with this insulin resistance, in essence. This insulin resistance, and really metabolic syndrome across the board. So I won't go into this in depth. We deal with this in more depth in our Eat Savvy Diet Masterclass, so you might want to look out for that. But certainly cut out the complex carbohydrates, eat more of a whole food diet, try some fasting even, do all of these sorts of things, and we can help you do that. But definitely cleaning up your diet makes it's just such a wise thing. Lots of healthy plants, Mediterranean inspired, but not with the grains of a Mediterranean diet. Really, we just recommend that you follow the Eat Savvy approach. It's based on sort of a compilation of many research-based dietary philosophies. So this is like, how do we find that thread that stitches everything together? And this is easier said than done, but we've worked as best as we can to thread the things together, because you may have heard of the keto diet, but there are many keto people who are unhealthy. because they eliminate some of the really nutrient-dense food. Then you might have heard of paleo, and they eliminate some of the things. You may have heard of Western Price, and we follow a lot of that research. You may have heard of plant-based and vegan. Well, then they eliminated many of the nutrient-dense, fat-soluble nutrients. So, yeah, a lot of them have truth. But how do we actually go, right, what's the common denominator of these things? That's what we've done with the Eat Savvy diet. We've really aimed, and it's constantly evolving. So, hey, stay in touch. We might find, and this is why at the moment we're being encouraged. We'll probably come out with a book, but we've resisted writing a book because even, for example, one of the people whose philosophies we involve in here are Dr. Stephen Gundry, author of The Plant Paradox, The Longevity Paradox, in his Gundry's Diet Revolution that he wrote before, which is still on sale and everything. People still reach out to him and say, but you said in your book this, and he said, yes, sorry, I don't believe that anymore. So his book's still selling, but now he's selling misinformation. So that's part of why we've resisted a book, but chances are we'll write a book because it's just a good way of packaging the content for people. So we'll keep you posted. So it's probably more likely to be an e-book than a physical book, because then that can be more easily updated. So we can keep you up to date with the latest. We really, that's why it's so important to tap in with what we do. We can keep you updated. Anyway, check out one of the best things to do would be to check out the blog post that we have on the 12 steps to help you get started on the Eat Savvy diet. We also have a masterclass on that too. But all of this, again, remember that step 2, we've got to deal with these nutritional deficiencies that we asserted were one of the fundamental issues. Most people, we believe, are running on empty in terms of nutrition. So the fact, the statement that all you need is a balanced diet is not fact. It's outdated advice at best. Perhaps it's even incorrect in this day and age. There's plenty of research, plenty of books of people who have really looked at that same issue and uncovered the evidence. And this isn't new news. I just mentioned Weston Price, and he published Nutrition and Physical Degeneration back in 1939. And he saw that when the indigenous cultures abandoned their natural culture for Western patterns of living, the Western diseases developed, as did tooth decay. And so when he believed that when you actually strip away the necessary vitamins and minerals by eating a processed diet and not a whole food diet, that you don't have all of the necessary nutrients. And many people say, like I've seen, not many people, some people say, yeah, but Price didn't know this and he didn't know that. No, he didn't. But gee, he found a lot of things, and his studies cannot be replicated, because who can find a culture living in their indigenous, unaffected by the modern world? How do you find that nowadays? He was able to find them and document them and see the changes. Even in families, when one brother ate Western and one brother ate natural, the difference in their teeth and their health and their strength and their vitality. He even then really started to do a study, because he was actually a dentist, a study off the topic of breast cancer and hormonal balance, I know, but I thought you might like the information. Because do you have cavities? It's a warning sign that you have stripped away the nutrition necessary to prevent disease. That's what Price found, that those who had vibrant health had low cavities. And what he found in some of his early research is that even with kids, even with children that he was dealing with on a bad Western diet, if he gave them just one meal a day that was rich in the nutrients, the fat-soluble nutrients that he was talking about, that he could reduce the incidence of their tooth decay. Just one meal. Not eliminating all the crap from the diet, but just giving them one nutrient-dense meal. Folks, this is more important than you ever realized. It's more important for your children and their dental health and their future health. It's more important for your hormonal health than you ever realized. It's just so important. And chances are, what we see all the time, people come to us, join the community and everything, and just sort of say, look, I'd heard of this stuff before, but I just didn't know where to turn or what to do next. And that's why you want guidance and you want community. So if you've been struggling to get this stuff done, get your nutrition done, then tap in with our community. I think you'll be glad you did. So just jumping on with more that, they've seen documented decline in the mineral content in foods. They've linked diseases to certain, when minerals go down, diseases go up. So we need 90 nutrients, we assert, made up of all these things: trace minerals, macro minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, amino acids, essential fatty acids, and of course, a healthy gut ecosystem or microbiome. And we do go into this deeper in some of our other classes. But look, we have a free online class that's called Are You Running on Empty? That delves into this issue of a decrease in the needed nutrients. So you might want to look at that. And we have what we call our 90 nutrients plan that really looks to solve some of those sorts of deficiencies alongside the Eat Savvy approach. So look, if you've been seeing some symptoms showing up, for example, then don't go attacking the symptoms. So any hormonal imbalance, even let's say it gets to breast cancer and everything, this is a symptom of an underlying imbalance. Let's correct the underlying cause. When we look at our illness wellness continuum picture here, when the signs and the symptoms show up and maybe there's actually disease, disability, and then leading to death, the treatment paradigm seeks to eliminate the issues, but not really truly help you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle, higher level of wellness. So it doesn't matter even if you're seeking treatment for things, even if you decide, let's say we're dealing with breast cancer and you really feel it's important to have prophylactic surgery. That's okay. That's your choice. But please follow a wellness paradigm alongside those decisions, because the treatment paradigm only gets you back to no discernible illness or wellness. It doesn't get you to a high level of vibrant health and well-being. Only a wellness paradigm can. So don't ignore the warning lights going off on the body. Don't ignore those symptoms and everything. Let's correct the underlying imbalances in the body. Love what Dr. Molly Roberts said, that if your body will start by whispering, then it'll start talking. And if you don't pay attention, it'll start yelling and shouting. But by then you have an illness. Okay. And so chances are most of the people with these issues have been ignoring some of these underlying signs. So looking at this again, we've looked at how to decrease toxins, how to decrease those growth factors, how to improve nutrition, how to balance metabolic health, and the ways we can help you do that. Now let's look at this whole chronic inflammation and impaired detoxification. So this is a fairly new concept in medicine, but it's really many experts are suggesting that rampant chronic inflammation in the body is the root cause of most diseases. So we've got to ask ourselves, what's actually causing the inflammation? Well, as I said before, it comes back to many of the other things, such as environmental toxins, a poor diet, drugs, increased weight, stress. And researchers are believing that inflammation is a particular issue for women. Because when you look at hormones, inflammation, and even poor gut health, for example, it's a bit of a nasty trio that can go on. So, acute inflammation, of course, is normal in the body. It's used to heal wounds, but it's the chronic low-level inflammation that isn't good. It's associated with fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, allergies, autoimmune diseases, and hormonal imbalance. So we've got to really deal with this. In fact, what they've looked at, so when I said back when I was sharing that before with the Angelina Jolie story, where she had the double mastectomy and then she had blood tests that scared her, so she decided to have her ovaries out as well. The blood tests were inflammatory markers showing up in her body. So according to the best advice she received, she had more organs removed and went on HRT essentially We don't really know, but did anyone go looking for the root cause of the inflammation, the markers that they were seeing? Did anyone say what's causing the inflammation? And this is where it's really interesting. You know, when I said before the standard of care is mammography, for example, and MRIs and ultrasounds and all that sort of thing, but rarely will you find a doctor that recommends thermal imaging. Yet thermal imaging can find the functional changes in the breast tissue way before anything shows up as a problem, because it's finding the inflammation. It's actually finding the hot spots in the body. And it might just be injury, it might just be blocked ducts, it might just be all sorts of things that could be corrected with improved diet, lifestyle, reducing overall inflammation in the body, and you head the problem off at the pass. So again, if we're looking at this, we've got to, and you can find, you know, for example, routine blood tests, or if you ask your doctor for most doctors don't screen routinely for high sensitivity, high HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein. This is a marker for all sorts of diseases like heart disease and breast cancer and all that sort of thing. And they've seen with people with that high levels of HSCRP can actually even be implicated and correlated with PMS problems, and in particular cramping. So if you're suffering cramping, severe premenstrual cramps, then that's one of those warning lights saying inflammation in the body. Women with lots of cramping often have high levels of HSCRP, which is a marker for other diseases. So in other words, the cramping is actually a warning sign of disease. So rather than ignore it, rather than ignoring or treating it with anti-inflammatories, which then blow holes in your gut and lead to leaky gut, which then lead to other autoimmune diseases and all that sort of thing, you can see the more we can look to the root causes and deal with those, the better off you're going to be and the best outcomes you're going to have from an all-round health improvement point of view. So have you experienced any of these? We're just dealing with inflammation there. Let's reduce chronic inflammation. And by the way, following the Eat Savvy approach, where you're eliminating seed oils, you're eliminating the grains, you're focusing on whole foods, you're getting rid of chemicals, you're getting rid of some of the things, maybe even tightening it, getting rid of some of the things such as the nightshade vegetables, you are going to dramatically drop your inflammatory load. Dramatically. Get rid of the EDCs from your household, change brands to safer products. Dramatically reduce that. Optimize your vitamin D, get some safe sunlight exposure, get rid of the blue light at nighttime, sleep better, stress less, dramatically drop your inflammatory load. All of the things that we teach will dramatically drop your inflammatory load, the precursor for most diseases according to latest research. So then we've got to look at the toxin side of things. How do we deal with these toxins? Have you experienced any of these problems? BO, frequent allergies and illness, trouble losing weight, moodiness, headaches, looking and feeling old, bags under the eyes, for example, grumpy, forgetful or dozy. Well, these are all linked to impaired detoxification ability, as are all of these things here too. So if you suffer from rashes and skin problems, digestive disturbances and joint pain and foggy thinking and irritability and hormone changes and fatigue and lethargy and all of these sorts of things, they're all linked to body toxicity. So what we need to do is optimize the detox pathway. So in our programs, we focus on the 7 detoxification pathways because there's so many different dangers of toxin deposits in the body. So what we need to do is we need to optimize these detox pathways: the skin, the bowel, liver, kidneys, lungs, lymphatic system, and blood and circulatory system. And we like to think of them almost like slippery slides that we need to make sure are flowing so that the toxins get out. And if any one of the slippery slides, especially the skin, bowel, and the liver, have impaired function, then you're going to end up with toxicity symptoms. And if they're not dealt with, then that will end up basically becoming a disease. So we have a detox wellness program to help you tackle that. But, sometimes just some of the general all-round things like eating more, for example, eating more of the cruciferous vegetables each and every day, green superfoods, green smoothies, low fructose, so low on the sugar and everything, eliminating the chemicals, following the Eat Savvy diet, drinking more water, eating lots of fiber-rich vegetables. All of these sorts of things can improve your detoxification. Dandelion tea. You can go really full on in. You can do saunas. Saunas are one of the best ways of getting out those heavy metals and the phthalates and the endocrine disrupting chemicals if you have been exposed. Like, let's say you're a hairdresser or a beautician or someone working in that industry, I believe you should be having regular saunas. Just because you're putting them in every day, you better be getting them out. And optimizing the liver function, for example, with dandelion, St. Mary's thistle, grapeseed extract, curcumin, these sorts of things. Green superfoods, but all the broccoli family, lots of broccoli, cruciferous vegetables, all of these sorts of things can help with the detox pathways of the liver. And really that helps with your conversion and excretion of these things such as excess estrogen and excess chemicals and whatnot. So really, really important stuff to do. So there we have it. That's the three things that I said. I tried to boil it down, all this literature. And what we might do is, as I said before, if you're interested in really delving into some of this sort of like, I'm doing this fairly, even though it's lots of info, I'm delving into this as broad spectrum as I can. If you really want to look at some of the research, some of the findings, some of what doctors have said, some of what I've brought together here, then if you think a masterclass on breast cancer prevention and hormonal balance would be worthwhile, then just ask and we'll schedule it in there somewhere along the way. So yeah, these are the three primary things. And so love what Dr. Dale Bredesen covered. Now, we recently did a class, a masterclass on Alzheimer's and really creating a healthier brain. And Dr. Dale Bredesen has worked in the area of research into Alzheimer's disease. And he said related to Alzheimer's that it's no longer about monotherapeutics. 21st century medicine is about programmatics. Okay, so this is the same thing. We're actually seeing the same thing. So when we're dealing with Alzheimer's, everyone was after the gene, family history. What's the one drug? What's the one root cause? And when you really start to go through and research, you realize that there are many causes. There are fundamentals, that if you correct the fundamentals, you prevent the disease. And Bredesen's research has even found that the disease goes away. Are we so naive that we can't think that, well, the same thing can happen for breast cancer? Same thing, breast cancer. It's no longer about monotherapeutics or genetics. It's about 21st century medicine, and even holistic wellness is about programmatics. The thing that we're so passionate about here in the Savvy team is understanding the fact that communities can help communities, because it's about supporting the execution of this. So much of this information is out there. People see their doctor and everything, and even doctors complain about the problem about keeping people on their programs. So, there have been examples of where whole communities have changed because they're all focused on helping each other. And that's what we're about here in the Savvy team. We don't, I'm no expert, but I'm passionate about uncovering what we can do and what we can execute upon today and what we can share with the people that we love around us to optimize our own well-being. It's brilliant that we have people that want to go into research and want to uncover this stuff for us and want to be practitioners when we need their help. But each and every day, being part of a community, we can just make those changes on a daily basis. And we don't need to really know all the ins and outs of everything to do that. We just need to know what changes to make, and we need the support to get it done. And that's what we help you do. So it's no longer about monotherapeutics, what drug, what gene, what treatment, what operation. It's about programmatics. And that's why we put together programs and action plans to help you get it done. So look, how can we help you? I hope that's been valuable information that you can extract some action steps from there. But how can we help you? We actually have an online survey that is that helps us to know what what are your needs, what are the areas that you would like help in, and then we can point you towards some of our specific action plans and information, invite you into our private community, and start to show you some of the information that we can that can really help you. Okay, so that would be the next step. Just request an invitation into our community, fill out the how can we help form, and let's get you on the path to a higher level of health and wellness. Given the right conditions, including physical, emotional, and mental preparedness, your body will always heal itself. Don't be afraid. Let's get the job done. So you'll want a plan, you'll want some solutions, you'll want guidance, and you'll want community. And we give you all of those things. So tap in with our community. I do think you'll be glad you did. Look, again, as we're finishing up, please be aware that, as I said before, I am not a medical professional, do not want to be a medical professional. I'm very grateful for those professionals that uncover much of this that I have been sharing. So this information is for educational purposes only, so should not be seen as medical advice. Okay? So, and you can have a look at all of the rest of those details, full details at savvy-team.com/legal. So I'd love to hear your inspirational insight. So what have you learned? Let us know. Send it into us. Tell us in the comments whether there's something in particular you've learned. What are you going to execute upon? We want to know. How can we help you more? Just let us know in the comments wherever you happen to be seeing this or listening to this. So, look, congratulations for being here on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. So that's it for the healthy section of the show. We do congratulate you for being here, being willing to really listen to this sort of information and be somebody who is proactive about their own health and lifestyle. Because, it's knowing and doing are poles apart, and there are lots of places that you could be apart from watching or listening to this. So I just want to say well done for investing the time and believing enough in your ability to improve your health that you're willing to educate yourself. So 2 thumbs up there. So if you have just joined us here for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, Corey Sievers here. Welcome to the show. I am your host, and we're going to jump on into the Wealthy and Wise section of the show. And so if you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle. And so when you connect in with our community, you'll have access to our step-by-step action plans, innovative solutions, and all the guidance and support that you need to reach a higher level of health and wellness. Sometimes it can be very overwhelming thinking about health and wellness and lifestyle and your goals and what you want to achieve and all that sort of thing. Well, we want to go through right now in the Wealthy and Wise section some tips to help you with less overwhelm and more life. Sound like a plan? So it seems as though we're getting busier and busier, and we're constantly chasing our tails really in this day and age. And it's, it's pretty easy to feel overwhelmed, right? Well, I'm sorry to say that there's no magic way to reduce the overwhelm. Can't wave a magic wand. It's actually doing the deep work. Cal Newport actually wrote a book called Deep Work, and he said that's what it is. It's like people need to slow down and think. How can I take control? What are the things that are overwhelming me? How can I get organized? Okay, so do the deep work, not the, and in the Facebook age and all that sort of thing, we can be scrolling by. Many people right now probably scrolled past this onto like puppy pictures or whatever else, yet this is life-changing information. So we're busy, we're overwhelmed because there are so many distractions. And so how do we really pull it all together and get things done? Well, it's deep work. It's slowing down. And so it's interesting that when we look at this whole issue of getting organized and deep work and all that sort of thing. One of the things that, whatever, there's no easy fix. Like, for example, in helping people, what we do through our Savvy Home Business division is help people build a home-based business in the wellness industry. And I've seen people get plenty overwhelmed because what they're doing is they're doing something alongside what they're already having to do. So they're taking on more in order to change their future. Well, it's the same thing whether it's changing your financial future or changing your health future. You're actually taking on more, because if you change nothing in your life, nothing changes in your life. So people if you're already overwhelmed and you want to improve your health, you want to improve your lifestyle, this will necessitate taking on extra stuff, extra responsibility, extra learning, like being here on the show, tapping in with the masterclasses and everything. And then it gives you more ideas, more notes, and more overwhelm. But so many people let the overwhelm mean that they give up on their own health and put that in the hands of the doctor or whatever, or give up on their own dreams. Don't really let that be you. It's actually time to get yourself organized. That's what it's really about. Get yourself organized. So the worst part about organization is the dreaded to-do list. Now, we recommend, it's all very well to have a mobile device to keep yourself organized, but this is not a natural planning device. Even there are many people, many millennials that have gone back to this. Just look up Bujo, for example, the bullet journal. Somebody who was looking at the overwhelm of digital devices and going, no, it's more natural to write things down. The brain works differently when we write things down. Okay, so really look at, so we believe in having a journal, having somewhere to write things down, but it can get pretty overwhelming if you just write down lists of things. The to-do list is really responsible for much of the overwhelm that people experience. Okay, and so lists aren't always enough. Sooner or later, you're gonna come up with a feeling of overwhelm, and that's probably because you haven't bunched your to-dos together. So enter philosophies such as David Allen's GTD philosophy, or Getting Things Done philosophy. So when I read the book 12 years ago called Getting Things Done Here in This Region, I just laughed. It's not... It can add more overwhelm because he's, more systems to implement and all these sorts of things. So it can add more overwhelm. But if we boil it down to it, it's just understanding the natural planning model and how our brain works and how we can get overwhelmed because we don't bunch our tasks together. So it's a great book. I do recommend the philosophy, but it can be overwhelming for most. So what I want to do is just put some practical things in place for you. So the key things that are in that I want to refer to is, rather than just to-do lists, it's recognizing that each and every one of us actually have multiple projects that we're juggling. So if your career has already been in project management, you get that. But if it hasn't been, you don't realize that you're not juggling to-dos. You're actually juggling multiple projects with to-dos. And that's part of the problem, because you can't do organized birthday party. You can't do clean out the garage. You can't do conquer my breast cancer. You can't do reduce my risk of disease. You can't do those things. You can only do the actions that lead to that. So projects, core concepts here, to understand projects, that you're juggling projects. You're juggling projects that have all the to-dos and next actions. You're juggling contexts. Some of those projects can only be executed upon in certain places. So you can't with your shopping list, you can't execute upon that shopping list unless you're in the context of at the shop. There are certain things you can't do unless you're at work, unless you're at the computer. And that's as simple as it is. Just GTD philosophy. People get overwhelmed with that. Oh my God, all these contexts. No, well, when you got to ask yourself, when can I do this task? I don't need to know about this task until I'm in a place where I can do it. So that's part of the problem. We get overwhelmed because we see our list and we realize that in our current position, I'm at home, there's only one thing that I can do. So there's no need to be overwhelmed because I can't do anything about the others anyway until I'm in that next context. So get to know the primary contexts. Look at the projects you're working on. Look at the context you're working on. And then the next massive thing is, rather than just a to-do list, what's the next action? Now, he calls it next action. I'd like you to think about this terminology. What's my next logical step? Logical. What's my next logical step? Not all the things I've got to get done. What's my next logical step on that? So let's just take it away. We've been dealing here with health and well-being, and so let's say you're wanting to, you're still here and you're wanting to deal with hormonal imbalance. What would happen is you would say, tackle my hormonal imbalance issues or eliminate my PMS. That's not a task. That's a project. So the project is create hormonal balance, eliminate my PMS, and create hormonal balance. That might be the project. Eliminate PMS now, create hormonal balance, and prevent breast cancer. That's your project, for example. So what are some of the things that you can think of that we've just covered that you could do on that? Well, I could change my diet. I could clean out the pantry. I could start supplementation. I can look to contact the Savvy team and change to safer brands of personal care. I can start exercising. I can look at a weight loss program. All these ideas. Now it can still be overwhelming, right? Because you've got all these ideas. What's the next logical step? Because you can't do all those lists of things either. Oh, well, my next logical step would be I'll use us as an example, set up a free How Can We Help discovery session. Boom, done. Overwhelm dealt with. I know what my next logical step is. There's nothing to do but that. What will be the next logical step? Clean out my pantry of processed foods. Great. What's the next logical step? Even begin an exercise program. That's a project. Contact my friends to start walking regularly. Whatever. What's the next logical step? Many of the things you're trying to do are projects. Start an exercise program, lose weight, improve my health, those sorts of things. How can you get that done? What context will you need to be in to do it? And what's the next logical step? So join gym, okay? How are you going to do that? Visit the gym. That's the context. Sign up, okay? Next logical step. Visit the gym on Saturday afternoon or whatever, sign up. Boom. You can't do a project. So you're suffering overwhelm. I assert that you're suffering from overwhelm because you're trying to juggle too many projects without looking at when you can do them and what the next logical step is. And they're not getting, hey, look, you preach that which you most need to learn, right? I get it. This thing is full of to-dos that are projects. We all fall off the bandwagon. So what's the overall project? Next question is, where can I get that done? That's the context. Really important question. What's the next logical step? Write it down. Group all of your tasks based on the context. So if you have a whole bunch of phone calls to do that could move a whole bunch of projects forward, do all the phone calls at once. If you've got a whole bunch of things to do in your social media world, if you're a small business owner or home-based entrepreneur or at work or whatever, and you've got a whole bunch of things to do on social, bunch those tasks together and do them all at once rather than going all over the place. If you have some emails to send or answer, bunch those tasks together. If you have some errands to run, bunch those tasks together. It's actually a natural model when you really think about it. And that leads us to the So whether it be getting things done in your life or whether it be improving your health, it's all doing the same GTD type of philosophy. So ask yourself what's the next logical step? Can I do it now? When can I do it? Where will I need to be to do that? And how can I remind myself to do that when I'm there? It's really terrible to be at the shops and go, there's something I needed, but I can't remember, because you haven't had a trusted system to remind you when you're in that context. So that's why you get overwhelmed and you go to the shops 3 times rather than getting it all when you were there. So that's that chasing, really chasing your tail. One of the things that I really believe that is worthwhile is to follow a mind mapping principle, where you just write, for example, the project down in the middle, and then you start to branch ideas of it. What are the tasks that I would need to do? What are the ideas that come from that? What are the things that are connected? How can I do these? And then you get a whole bunch of ideas, and then you can list them into context. It's really, really powerful way of doing that. Now, I also love I read the book not so long ago, Essentialism by Greg McGowan. And, he again encourages you to sort of cut it back down to what's really important. And we've been talking about health improvement here, and that is important. I would assert that many of the things that you put above executing on your health are probably not as important as health. Many of the things people are doing today, instead of jumping on our live, I would assert are not as important as optimal health. But we do them, don't we? And that's because we just get bombarded by the demands of other people, the demands of what we've said yes to and everything. So I'll give you some 4 tips here. I was just jotting down some notes here. So I would encourage you to follow the weekly review tactic of GTD. At least once a week, sit down and just really get a good picture of what's going on in your life, your priorities, your projects, open loops, all these sorts of things. And when people crash and burn with the GTD philosophy and say it's all too complicated, it's probably because they've eliminated and stopped doing the weekly review. That's what happened with me. They don't sit down and get a picture of everything. They don't do the deep work, as Cal Newport would put it. So, number one, 4 tips here. Number 1, just because you put it on your to-do list doesn't mean you have to do it. Circumstances change quickly. I've had to learn this. I put things on there and things have changed before I got it done. We're in a fast-paced world. Our environment changes, things change, ideas change, things come at us quickly, and sometimes we may have to give up on one project in favor of another because the opportunity presents itself. It's okay to delete tasks and move a project to our someday maybe list, as David Allen would put it. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, just because someone asks you to do it doesn't mean you have to say yes. We all want to be team players. But each time we say yes to something, then we are splitting our time. There is an opportunity cost to that. So if you want a fun movie, watch the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey. It's really fun because to break through his paradigm of being closed and not being out there in the community, he went to a seminar that told him to say yes to everything. So he started to say yes to everything, and it opened him up to new opportunities, which is a good thing to do. But then he became so overwhelmed that he had to learn that it's then about discernment. After you've broken through that, it's about discernment and learning to say no. So, for example, some of the examples I was reading there, if your boss asks you to take on a project and you feel you can't refuse it outright, you could use this line. Sure, what would you like me to deprioritize instead? Because that's acknowledging that if I do this now, I will not be doing that. And sometimes when someone's telling us what to do or encouraging us to do a new project, they don't keep in mind all of the other things that you've still got on your plate. Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Which of the projects that I'm currently working on would you like me to deprioritize, move down the priority list? Now we're getting to, and that's if you're working for somebody and they're the one calling the shots, then they're the ones that might be dealing with the priorities. If you have a hard time saying no outright, you might like to say, let me check my calendar and I'll get back to you. So that gives you the space to think through your commitments and determine whether or not you can do it, and also sort of come up with a bit of a polite way of saying, no, I can't do it. because otherwise you might overreact and snap at the person, and in your overwhelm, just say, let me check my calendar and I'll get back with you, rather than snapping, don't you know I have too much to do already? Have you been guilty of that? Yep. All right. So number 3, just because it sounds like a cool project, an awesome opportunity, another one, guilty. I'm writing down these things that I've read in different places and that relate to me, so you might relate to. Just because it sounds like a cool project and an awesome opportunity doesn't mean you should take it on. There is a tremendous fear of missing out that goes on, and too many of us say yes to opportunities and we just can't pull it off. So really take a step back and sort of determine what's most important for you. So Derek Sievers, author of Anything You Want, good little book, he says, don't say any more yes or no. It needs to be hell yeah or heck no. Really make it a little bit more cut and dry there. So that was number 3. Number 4, it's okay to reschedule today's tasks for tomorrow. Right? It's okay. It's okay. But if your to-do list just keeps getting bigger and bigger, then something has to be done because you may be taking on too much. Or maybe even reschedule a task to a someday maybe section. Allow yourself to be flexible to reschedule things, okay? And most of all, have a trusted system for recording things. If it's not the getting things done philosophy, if it's not a bullet journal, if it's not an app on your phone, like I use a few things. I use Toodle-Do because it's an app that's been available since I got the first iPhone. So there's all sorts of things that have come out. I've just continued to use it because it's been around for so long. I use that and this, as well as Trello. Okay, so Toodle-Do, it's a free online tool as well. It's a little bit complicated to get to use. I use Trello. And I use this, but there are plenty of other organizational systems. That's just what I started using. Have a trusted system, because what happens otherwise is you try to remember everything. And then you crash and burn. And the reason that you crash and burn is because your mind is trying to remind you of these things. And this is why David Allen says your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. He believes in it so much that he even trademarked that term somehow. Clever dude. Anyway. So look, this is something that my mentor in the health and well-being space said that he received through countless periods of actual prayer and meditation, trying to search for answers to many of the sort of questions around helping people heal their body and their life. And he said this was the message that came to him, and I want to give that message to you today. To search for things beyond our grasp is fantasy, when that which lies within our reach we see has not yet been completed, yet holds the key to that which through right action ours will be. The simplest things in life will make us free. So that's pretty powerful when you really think about that. So when we're looking at getting things done, when we're looking at improving your health, when we're looking at project management, everything, to search for things that are beyond your grasp, beyond your ability to do today or tomorrow, is fantasy. Especially when that which lies within our reach has not even been done, yet holds the key to that which through continued right action ours will be. The simplest things in life will set us free. So that's really powerful, whether it be improving your health and you're tackling a major health challenge, or just wanting to improve your all-round health. If you're wanting to lose weight for summertime, and we help you do that. If you're wanting to tackle executive stress and well-being. If you're wanting to get on top of hormonal imbalance. To search for things beyond your grasp is fantasy if there are a whole bunch of things that you can do now or that we can help you do that will get you there. The simplest things in life will set us free. So such a powerful thing. And, I just love this quote too from Ralph Waldo Emerson, that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. I'm not calling you a little mind, but don't keep doing what hasn't got you there in the past. It's time to make some changes, and we're here to help. Look, If you're, one of the things in this area, we have a wellness program that's for maximum performance and well-being. We call our executive and entrepreneur high performance well-being program, which is about optimizing your thinking, optimizing your energy levels, optimizing your immune system, and your whole resiliency, really. And reducing stress, all of that sort of thing. So, if you're listening to this segment of the program, you probably want to optimize your life. You want to get things done. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit about that in case it's something you'd like to explore. We basically go through 4 steps in the executive wellness program, where 1, we tackle holistic wellness management, where we just really look at all of the aspects of wellness and help you to reduce your overall risk. Sometimes that's enough to help you feel better and get more done at work. Then we look at stress management, because if you have better sleep, reduced stress levels, more harmonious work and home life, then it just has a flow-on effect to the rest of your life. So you may not even need to go further than that. We find that when people do the first 2, they have more energy. Because they're sleeping better, they wake feeling more refreshed. They're less irritable, etc. If you still need more improvement, then we move to the energy, vitality, and immunity improvement. Many people have time off work because they're exhausted. Their immune system is down. They're overworked and underappreciated, and they just need some specific herbal assistance to support their whole physiology. So then we work on that. But you may not even need to go all the way there. Then we look at mental performance and productivity improvement, where we really look to optimize things with nootropic herbs and some of the underlying things that improve your ability to remember things and get things done and be a knowledge worker as such. So that's sort of the way to have less overwhelm, more life, all of those sorts of things. So I hope that gives you some executable tips. Look, as we've said before, for your best wellness journey, for your best health and lifestyle improvement journey, you need a plan. You need some solutions, you'll want some guidance, and you'll want community, and that's what we offer you. So how can we help you? Come and request an invitation into our community. I think you'll be glad you did. So I'd like you to really, really think about this as we wrap up the show for this particular session. What will make the biggest difference in your life right now? Would it be more health and vitality than you have right now? Because we can help you get that done. If you've been struggling to improve your health and vitality, let's come up with an action plan. Look at some of our information. We have free information everywhere. But if you're really ready to cut through the confusion and you want to finally get it done, then let's work together on it. What about money and lifestyle? Maybe that's the issue. Well, we have personal growth information and things. That's why we do the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, and we have turnkey systems to help you capitalize on things in the wellness industry to develop an income stream from home in the wellness industry. So if money and lifestyle is more what you're looking for, then let's get that done together. And we do that through our Savvy Home Business division. And so you can request an invitation into our private Facebook group for that. So look, thanks for joining us for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. Great to have you with us. So look, we'd love to know your thoughts, and please do share this with the people that you care about. The topic of preventing breast cancer and achieving hormonal balance is so, so important. So what would you like to know more about? What are the things that you're struggling with? We'd love to know. We'd love to, to know. We don't want to know your struggles. We don't want to support you in your struggles, but if we know, we can help you with education, information, to really point you in the right direction. So thank you for being here and investing the time to be on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. Look forward to catching up with you sometime in the future. So until next time, it's Corey Sievers here, encouraging you to be savvy. All the best. Catch you next time.